Hello again, we are Newsroom. Yes, coming to you live from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name, of course, is Eben Jansen. The show, as always, is live and broadcast from our studios right here in Auckland Park. Now, of course, between 9 and 12 every weekday morning, you can also watch us live on YouTube. We stream live there. We've got a question today, an interesting theme we have. Yes, we've got a lot of news going on, but we've got an interesting theme. Every 8 hours, a woman is killed at the hands of her partner in South Africa. How do we curb, how do we stop the serious levels of domestic violence we have in our country? Interesting topic. At SABC Newsroom is where you can give us your opinion on that. But it's been an interesting night. Let's go to the news desk where Elvis will put us in the loop.
Thank you, Eben, and let's take a look at those headlines. Academic activities at the University of the Free State are suspended following yesterday's mayhem. As Eben indicated, an undercover SABC News team has exposed how easy it is to fraudulently acquire firearm proficiency certificates for a few thousand rand and use those guns on your spouse. And Ban Ki-moon arrives in Burundi amid political turmoil in that country. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. A very good morning to you.
Elvis, good morning. There's more headlines coming up, definitely in the sports, more unpleasant news coming up. In fact, first up, there's more trouble brewing for Athletics Kenya as CEO gets suspended by the IAAF Ethics Committee, pending an investigation into bribery and corruption allegations. This is Formula One World Champion Lewis Hamilton says his new car feels great as he has what he calls his best ever start to pre-season testing. A massive night is on the cards in the UEFA Champions League as Arsenal take on Barcelona and Juve host Bayern Munich. And that, in a nutshell, is what we have for you in the sports. Be sure to stick around for that 10:20 or so. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Our top story this hour. The sentence hearing of Czech fugitive Fraudulent Krejcir and 5 co-accused is expected to continue in the High Court in Johannesburg today. Yesterday, proceedings were halted after security officers learned of a bomb threat. The bomb squad combed the building after it was evacuated, but no bomb was found. Last year, Krejcir and his co-accused were found guilty of attempted murder and kidnapping. Our reporter Gillian Pillay was part of the journalists who attended the court proceedings, and she now joins us to give us an update. Gillian, a very good morning to you and welcome.
A very good morning to you, Elvis. Yes, thank you for joining us here in the South Gauteng High Court. And what we wanted to do today was we wanted to bring the country as well as the continent into the courtroom. Yesterday, they were privy to quite a lot of dialogue between Krejcir, who had represented himself from the dock. So we just wanted to give the viewers insight into what we as journalists had experienced after the announcement that there was some imminent threat, a bomb scare. No. So this is where the SABC team was sitting, radio colleagues and myself and a camera person. Albert, sorry I interrupted you there.
Because I wanted you to take us through that experience, you as a journalist, during that bomb scare yesterday.
Yes, so as I was saying, Albert, this is where we as the SABC have positioned ourselves, because it's very, to just get the, audio and just get enough detail around the arguments. And what I noticed was that one of the TRT officers had exited court, and it was very bizarre, his demeanor and his body language. And shortly after that, the prosecutor then made an announcement and had said that proceedings had to be postponed because, there was an imminent threat that needed to be dealt with immediately. At this stage, my radio colleague Norma Bolanga then stood up, and I thought, Norma, we don't want to be on the wrong side should there be a scuffle. And I said to her, can you please sit down? I then turned to my colleague Thabo Madilola, who was on my right-hand side, and I then, like your journalistic instinct kicks in, and I said, Thabo, let's go live. I didn't think of the danger. I didn't think of the possibility that we might be in a very compromising position. Thabo was very reluctant, understandably. I then said again to him, we need to go live because I wanted us to break the story. It was one of the first cases that I'd been on where there'd been so much drama and a dramatic turn of events. Tabu then, he got ready, but with this, one of the guards had said, that we needed to vacate the court. But what had happened thereafter was something else. TRT officers then, they stormed towards the dock, heavily armed. They stormed towards the dock. They then stormed towards Krejcir, who was in the dock with the other 5 convicted. They then bundled him up. They then took him down. And what we're going to show you now is towards the cells. They then took him down to the lower part of the courthouse. And they then bundled him into his convoy, getting him as far from this precinct as possible. As you know, they're trying to prevent any type of threat to Krejcir as well as the judge as possible. And what we then did as the media, we then moved towards the corridor adjacent to this courtroom, and we just hung around in the event that there should be any more dramatic detail, Elvis. And then we eventually were told to vacate the courtroom, but it was an uneasy atmosphere. It was a lot of emotions running through the, many journalists trying to report on the matter, highly charged atmosphere, highly charged emotions, knowing that we've heard about what could happen in a case like this, but to experience it is completely different, Elvis.
Now, how is security today? Is there a lot of security after the bomb threat?
Elvis, we wanted to do this crossing ideally at 6 a.m. to our sister channel Morning Live, but we were then told not to be in this vicinity. It's a very sensitive area, this court, at this stage, as you can imagine. A guy from the bomb ballistics unit then asked us to vacate the courtroom, and yes, very heavy security, understandably. Members of the K9 unit from early this morning, they've been going through the 12th-floor building of the courtroom, trying to just circumvent in the event of any other possible threat, any other possible disaster, Elvis. So
yes. Very,
very high security, as you can imagine.
What can we expect today, Julian?
Elvis, we are hoping to continue with proceedings. We are hoping that the parties who did not conclude the arguments, that they take the stand, that they put mitigating factors, that they put mitigating actors forward to the bench, asking for a lenient sentence for their clients. I'm linking now to Mbali Sibonyane, who is now at the University of the Free State.
Students and workers have gathered here at the University of the Free State, where a protest over issues around outsourcing is taking place. We do know that this specific protest has been going on for quite some time now, but has now been escalated to a complete campus shutdown. To tell us more about this specific protest, we are now joined by SRC President Lindo Ntuli. Now, Lindo, can you just let us know what makes this specific protest different from all the others?
This one is different because it has turned into a black and white. It is different because the students are standing with the workers in solidarity with the demands made by the workers. It is simple. We want outsourcing to end. It is simple. We want the victimization of the students to end by the university. So what happened yesterday was we were joining the workers in a very peaceful protest. The workers have been protesting since last week, and it has been peaceful up until yesterday. And as we marched into the Shimla Park, we went into the stadium, we held hands and we sang. The guys who were playing moved aside. And the white guys who were sitting on the stands stood up with their parents, came down at us and beat us up. It was ridiculous because, of course, the majority of people who are watching rugby are white guys. So they outnumbered us. We had situations where defenseless ladies were lying on the floor and 5 guys were attacking them. It has become a matter of race. The University of the Free State is the one that promotes diversity and that promotes inclusivity. But what we saw yesterday, it's contrary to what the image of the university is and what the university is trying to purport and preach to the world. It is very disappointing. The rector was at the stadium. He watched. He never said anything. And after the incident, the match continued as if nothing happened. We are disappointed with the university. We are disappointed that the university would go out of its way to protect minority interest. The university would go out of its way to protect white supremacy at the expense of the disadvantages of the black students, the disadvantages of the black workers. The black workers are still subjected to inferiority on campuses. They are still subjected to poor salaries. They are still subjected to poor working conditions. We cannot allow that as the students. These are our mothers. We come from the same communities they come from, and we cannot allow them to be victimized by outsourcers. When they make a call to end outsourcing, it is not simply about the salary only. It's about the ill treatment they face on a daily basis. It's about the working conditions that they're facing. Okay. So this is what makes it different from all other protests. It has become a matter of race. And if you can see also the numbers of students who are protesting, all of them are black. In fact, what happened yesterday, after the incident at Simla Park, there were white Pakis looking for the SRC president and looking for the vice president. They were armed. They were shooting at every student that they came across. And the police were assisting them. That is the sad reality of our nation. The white people continue to use our own public services against us when we are standing and protesting for legitimate causes. Protesting is a legitimate right, enshrined in Section 17 of the Constitution. No one can take that away. The university cannot take that away. It is a right that we protest peacefully, unarmed, that we picket. The university is not an island. The university is bound by the rules and laws of the country. The university cannot operate as it pleases. So we're here standing in solidarity with our black brothers, our black sisters, and our black workers. Racism must stop.
And what are you demanding from the university?
Our demand is very simple. And we've made that very clear, but it's unfortunate the university was not able to get to our demands. The first demand, end outsourcing. In-source the workers directly as a university. The second demand, give the workers a better living wage. Thirdly, improve their working conditions. And most importantly, end racism. The University of the Free State, when it was built, those who built it never had in their minds that one day there'll be a black student at the university. So you still find that most of the policies implemented by the university and the culture of the university is extremely racist. We are subjected to oppression as a black student. You see this when you're working at the student center. You see this in the classrooms. You see this in the residences.
I'm going to have to cut you off there. Thank you very much. We do know that protesting is expected to continue throughout the day, but it's not yet clear when classes will resume at this specific campus. It's back to you in studio.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, of course, our theme today, we're dealing with abuse, and let's get right into it. Now, the relationship between drugs and crime is a complex one, and the question is, well, whether drug abuse leads to antisocial behavior. However, researchers agree that alcohol consumption, especially at harmful and hazardous levels, is a major contributor to the occurrence of intimate partner violence. According to the latest data from the South African Wine Industry Information System, South Africans last year consumed more than 14 billion litres of alcohol. And now that's an increase of 13.6% in the last decade alone. Last year's crime statistics recorded a 0.9% increase in contact crimes such as murder, attempted murder and other sexual offences. The Medical Research Council reports that every 8 hours a woman is killed by an intimate partner here in South Africa. Now, to explore this complicated link between alcohol consumption and domestic violence, we are joined from our Pretoria studios by Professor Rachel Jukes, who is the Director Gender and Health Research Unit from the South African Medical Research Council. A very good morning to you, Professor Jukes. Thank you for being with us today.
Good morning.
The link between the high levels of domestic violence and alcohol consumption, of which those levels are also very high. How do we make that connection in South Africa, Professor?
Well, I think there are two key ways The first is that for families, particularly that have constrained incomes, which is the majority of families in South Africa, if there is a family member who drinks heavily, that places a burden on the family overall income, which means that there's much more likely to be conflict in the home, because fighting over money is one of the most potent causes of conflict within relationships. And we know that whenever there is conflict, it's more likely to escalate in South Africa to the use of violence, and so to domestic violence. So firstly, it fuels conflict. And the second thing is that in the context where there is conflict, it's much more likely to become violent and more severely violent if one or both of the partners in the conflict have been drinking, because of the way in which alcohol impacts on one's brain and reduces inhibitions, reduces an inability to control impulse, and that can lead to an escalation of aggression and violence. The figure you quoted of 3 women a day essentially being killed by an intimate partner in South Africa comes from research which had also shown that, particularly in the Western Cape, a very high proportion of women who are killed have very high levels of blood alcohol when they're killed, which particularly points to a context in which that final violent argument occurred, which resulted in the murder of the woman, which is a context which is fueled by alcohol. And although we only know about the woman's alcohol level, it's very, very likely the person who killed her had a very high alcohol level too.
Domestic violence, is this behaviour, this pattern of behaviour, is this a learned behaviour?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there are societies in the world that have very, very low levels of domestic violence. And I think what our research shows is there are 2 key things which drive the behaviour. Within a society, one is the culture of the use of violence in a range of different contexts for resolving problems. And we know in South Africa that people very readily reach to acts of violence in situations of conflict or when they want to enforce their views and their opinions on other people. We have a very violent society. We're dealing at the moment with cases of severe violence against children by teachers in schools, violence on university campuses. We know there's a lot of street violence. We have violent protests in the community. So it's not just within homes, it runs throughout our society. The violence is very readily used. And the second problem is constructions of masculinity that say that men should be dominant and in control over women, because those are the ideas that legitimise the use of violence by men against their women partners, either to assert dominance or to punish women if they see them as having transgressed some rule.
Yeah.
And it's that potent combination that leads to domestic violence.
We have no shortage of campaigns every year in South Africa. We have 16 days and a whole host of others. We're right in the middle of a new campaign. Now, can you give us a quick overview of the state of our campaigns and whether these campaigns are then working?
Well, I think the campaigns are very effective in terms of raising the issues. And I think it would be a huge problem for our society if we had a silence on domestic violence, which is a situation that used to very largely exist 20 years ago. And so I think that the media and NGOs have played a very important role in the campaigns. And obviously the campaigns have some government support as well. Are they solving our problem? Well, no, we don't really have evidence at the moment that levels of violence are declining within the country. And so we really need to do very much more. We need to intensify the commitments to the campaigns. We need to have much more money going into prevention of violence. And we need a variety of other strategies. For example, our research has shown that if we teach life orientation well with well-trained teachers in schools, that we can actually help school children protect themselves from domestic violence. So now we've shown that we need to get those interventions out into schools so that we effectively use that as a violence prevention platform. And we know there are things we can do in communities, particularly when we combine economic empowerment opportunities for women with gender transformative interventions. They can be very effective. And some of our NGOs have developed very effective interventions, predominantly working with men, but also with women within communities to try and change social norms around the use of violence and gender. So we know what we should be doing, but we need to have the resources, the commitment, the support to get that out there.
Professor, thank you very much for joining us today. That's Professor Rachel Jukes, the Director, Gender and Health Research Unit from the South African Medical Research Council. We're talking about their latest research with regard to domestic violence and abuse here in South Africa. But Elvis has a little bit more.
Thank you, Eben. And we're asking you that important question today. It's going to be on your screen shortly. That question is, every 8 hours a woman is killed, and how do we now stop the domestic violence in our country? Every 8 hours, a South African, a woman, is killed by an intimate partner. And a legal gun is used in 75% of those cases, and in 60% of the shooting occurs in her own home. Now, to highlight this, a campaign by Sonke Gender Justice, Gun-Free South Africa and ISS have launched a Gun-Free Valentine's campaign. Now, to tell us more about the campaign, we joined in studio by Mbuyisela Botha, who is the Media Relations Officer from Sonke Gender Justice. Mbuyisela, a very good morning to you. Shocking statistics.
Shocking indeed, Elvis.
Now, if we look at this particular campaign, you have started this campaign now to stop this. What is the aims and the objectives of the campaign?
Well, the campaign, Elvis, seeks to do two things. One is to say police need to apply the law, that you have the Firearms Controls Act that gives the police powers to remove guns from homes of those that are threatened. If a woman goes to the police station, Elvis, that woman says that there's a gun at home and I feel threatened, that, you know, the Domestic Violence Act, the Firearms Control Act, important two pieces of legislation that authorizes or gives police officers powers to remove that gun. That's what should be happening. In more cases, Elvis, that's the first thing. In more cases, you'd find that police would go in and want to mediate that, look here, this is a family dispute. I mean, there are instances where women have died with the protection orders in their hands or in their bags. So that's what it seeks to do. But secondly, it seeks also to say, how do we engage men? Because it is men, Elvis, who would say that, look, I am buying this gun because I want to protect my family. Because there is a notion that if you are a man, you are head of the family, you must protect your family. So we buy guns, you and I. We buy guns under the false pretext that I'm going to protect, when in fact we're going to use that gun to, I mean, statistics show 57% of those that are killed are not killed by strangers. And that's the operative word.
These are intimate spouses.
Absolutely. People that they know, people that they love, people that at one stage had professed till death do us apart, when in fact it is them who do them apart. So there are those two levels where it says police effect the law. Do not act as social worker psychologists. Because in some instances, and by the way, let me add, there are lots of good policemen and women who do tremendous work under difficult circumstances. But you have those policemen and women who, in fact, take it as their responsibility to say, let's this is a family matter. Let's sort it out, you know, traditionally or culturally. And we think that what the Valentine's campaign seeks to do, that it is not correct for policemen and women to act against the law.
Was the campaign related to the River Steenkamp, which has also happened, by the way, on Valentine's Day?
Well, it has. That's what we call, in your language, that was our hook, that invariably a river would still be alive. You know, there are people who make this, I think it's a non-debate that guns don't kill people. I mean, for the life of me, I can't understand people who argue that they say that guns are not killing people. People are killed by people. I don't understand. So we're saying that as a result of, and by the way, there are others who are faceless, who are nameless, the majority of them black women who live under difficult circumstances, who get killed every day, but their names don't get to newspapers, radio, television. So this campaign, Elvis, seeks to say that had it not been the proliferation of guns in our country, River will still be alive, so are thousands of other women. Yeah.
Now, SABC has just done an investigation, and we'll have that particular interview just now after this interview to talk to us about how easy it is to get a gun license. Now, what you are suggesting with this campaign, if there is no guns on the market, then this will not happen.
Absolutely, it would not. I mean, it would not happen. But also to say that, and this is what also President Zuma alluded to, spoke about it. I mean, we are not in the state of war. Why is it that every Dick, Tom, Harry, or Salamina is armed to the teeth? Why is it that, I mean, this country, you turn around, you have everybody who you don't even know why you're having this gun, and because and Rachel alluded to this that it's as if that we are constant in a state of war. So we're saying that as an organization, these three organizations, ISS, Gun Free South Africa, Sonke, that it's about time as South Africans that we reflect deeply on what guns do to our country. Because you see, Elvis, what we tend to do, we always close the stable when the horse is bolted. And a part of our work is preventative work, working with men and boys. But how then do you continue to work with men and boys constructively without being proactive and say, don't buy guns because guns kill?
How do people join this campaign, just very briefly? Well,
go to our website, which would show the other three websites, which is www.genderjustice.org.za. You'd find different programs, but also joining that it's going to run until the 8th of March, which is the International Day on No Violence Against Women.
Mbuyisile, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That was the Media Relations Officer, Mbuyisile Botha. He's from Sonke Gender Justice. And of course, that campaign launched, #GunFreeValentine Campaign. That's the campaign name.
Yes.
So you can join and get in touch with us. But right now, we continue this discussion. This is our theme today. It's about domestic violence in our society. It's over to you, Eben.
Yeah, Elvis, on this note now, an undercover SABC News team has exposed how easy it is to fraudulently acquire firearm proficiency certificates for just over R1,000. The document was issued by the Secretary of the South African Professional Firearm Trainers Council with neither knowledge of the Firearms Control Act nor practical skills being tested. Now, this report from Griselda Lewis and cameraman Wayne Horton.
Skopos Firearms Academy is literally under fire.
Regulation 21.
Its owner, Andre van Tonder, sold us firearms certificates through the back door. These documents open the door to a firearm license being issued.
Daarso sy certificate.
Okay. Here, he sells us a proficiency certificate and statement of results, even though our knowledge of the Firearms Control Act was never tested. And neither did we undergo a practical test on how to use a firearm at his shooting range. These are the documents that were fraudulently issued, claiming that the course has been completed. His underhand activities come with a price tag as demonstrated here. So we confronted him days later.
Mr. Van Tonder, why are you participating in illegal activity?
Because
How can you say that somebody knows how to use a firearm when they cannot? He's never used a handgun in his life. He doesn't even understand the Firearms Control Act. And you okayed this. For 1,110 rand, this is a danger to society.
Stumbling and unable to explain.
Listen, if people come with fraud in their heart to me, I can't verify that. I can't.
He was then forced to pay back the money. Griselda Lewis, SABC News, Klorkop in Johannesburg.
Hairy stuff. Now, Griselda is with us this morning in studio. Griselda, very interesting story, very brave work you did there, but you had a police escort. But before we get into the details of what happened there, tell us quickly, there's some new developments now.
Absolutely breaking news, actually, for Newsroom this morning, in that we've just received the suspension letter for Mr. Van Tonder. Mr. Van Tonder, as indicated in that package, does sit on the board of the Professional Firearms Training Council. And officially now, he's been suspended. He can no longer, essentially, pending this investigation by this body that he sits on, he can no longer use his training facility. He can no longer as well offer training to people who want certificates or licenses for firearms. So at this point, he's been stopped from doing business immediately. Just quickly take us to the background of this investigation. How did you come across this, and how did that investigation then pan out? Well, it's always urban communities that contact us at SABC News. So we followed up on one of those leads and, of course, tested the allegations. And the allegations proved to be true, that the Skopos Firearms Centre, which is accredited, the academy itself, was fraudulently issuing these proficiency certificates and statements of results. So what was even more shocking about this is that the person who was busted in that clip sits on the board of the organization which is supposed to be a custodian of firearms training in this company, in this country. So who's to say what other academies are up to? We also understand as well from this particular council that there isn't a shortage of suspensions in this industry as a result of this underhanded activity. This centre is licensed, though, to handle this kind of business, to give these kinds of certificates. They just don't bother. They just take the money and give you a license. Well, 100%. They are accredited with the relevant institutions. What we demonstrated is that this particular institution doesn't follow the rules and the regulations, and is essentially flouted, the rules and regulations that guide the Firearms Control Act, in that you were just able to go in. Now, what's critical about this, Eben, if I could just explain it, is that this essentially opens the door for you to acquire a license, a gun license, because this is the only test that you will go through. What was supposed to happen in this instance was that we were supposed to go there and do a test that will demonstrate that we know and understand the Firearms Control Act, then do a practical test where we literally have to fire. And once that is done, we would then go and apply for a gun license together with the competency. No further tests are done there. Essentially what you're waiting for then is for you to receive a feedback from the South African Police Service, and that's all it is. Now, the President in the State of the Nation address directly touched on this, looking at the proliferation of firearms in South African society. How do you think this all kind of adds up? I think it is a fantastic idea. There is absolutely no dispute that the handling of guns or the proliferation of drugs in South Africa is a problem. And hence President Jacob Zuma had announced in his State of the Nation debate reply that 2 special units will be set up, which will fall under the Hawks, the specialized unit, and one of these is to deal with the proliferation of firearms, hoping that some of these issues, some of these loopholes certainly that are clearly demonstrated will be able to be dealt with, because whether a gun is legal or illegal, it still is fatal. So even worse in this instance, when you've got people, my guess is as good as yours. How many are out there who have firearms, but the documents they acquired to use those in legal means were acquired illegally? Thank you for some fantastic work that you're doing, Griselda. I know that there are counterfeiters and con men out there that are quaking in their boots because of what you're doing. But on the score, 1 in 8, once every 3 South African women are killed at the hands of their partners every day. More than half of those are shot by legal firearms, mind you. So the kind of work that you're doing, really, we're trying to kind of point out today what the effects are of this kind of behavior. Thank you for joining us today,
And just quickly before I let you go, how are you going to proceed with this story now?
Well, certainly one of the issues that have come under scrutiny now is the accreditation, because that particular firearms academy needs, was accredited by the South African Police Service.
Yeah.
We need to know what the way forward is regarding that. We know now that Mr. Van Tonder has been suspended. Also with the South African Qualifications Authority, how they plan to take this particular matter forward, and how the board of that council is also going to take this forward. That's certainly going to come up in the next couple of days.
Thank you very much, Criselda Lewis, as always, bringing us the juice here on Newsroom very early in the morning. It's a story that's in the headlines for all the right reasons today. Of course, we're dealing with domestic violence, abuse, women dying at the hands of their partners here in South Africa today. It's a scourge. The numbers are a little bit too high to be comfortable with. Now, another story, of course, overnight deals with violence. The University of the Free State has now condemned the violence, the violence against protesters that disrupted a varsity cup match between the Shimlas and the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, the Madibas, yesterday. Lots of comments and unhappiness about this on social media. Sunil says, black students getting beaten up at a varsity cup. What? Why? How? My heart breaks more and more each day, says Sunil. Baden says, rugby is sacred to Afrikaans people. What were you thinking? Even if you were white, you'd still get the hiding of your life, says Baden the Arend. Looking Daba says, whose idea was it for those people to go disrupt a rugby game? How was that wise? Asks Looking Daba. See you there. Yep, those are the ones. Do we have the pictures of that incident? Do we have the incident itself? Yeah? The picture of the day. Okay, that was the standoff afterwards. That's our tweet pick of the day. It comes from South Africa SA Rugby magazine, who captured this intense moment between student protesters and fans who clashed during that match last night. The video of the incident is a little bit more hectic than that. But let's move on now. Quick look now at... Do we have the video? We found the video. Please run the video. We just want to show what kind of chaos ensued at Shimla Park, is what they call it in Bloemfontein last night. A group of protesting students they were attacked by rugby spectators, the looks of it, and there was a fracas of note taking place. Yeah, there you see the students barging on, and now it becomes a full-on assault. There's more and more spectators charging into this protest, and that's where the fisticuffs started to happen. It was a hectic scene with bodies strewn, people being punched and beaten up all over, causing a lot of consternation in South Africa today, as you can imagine. But let's go internationally quickly. Here are the front pages from around the world. Now, we'll start in Europe. The Times reports that the bosses of more than a third of Britain's 100 largest companies are calling for the country to stay in the European Union, providing a boost to David Cameron as he fights to put his referendum campaign back on track. Then we go to New York, where the Wall Street Journal reports that Rome last month began allowing armed American drones to fly out of a Sicilian airbase for military operations against the Islamic State in Libya and across North Africa. Then in Florida, the Miami Herald reports that a man convicted in a deadly Connecticut home invasion in 2007 is set to go before a judge in a bid to win a new trial. Time for us to take a quick break. Newsroom will be back shortly with more.
Are you saying the king must go to jail? You are not royal blood, therefore you are going to serve time on behalf of the king. Where does the public protector stand on this matter? Are you with the marches, for the marches, against the march? If this is your ancestor, it is very much his ancestor as well, because this is the cradle of humankind. Is there God somewhere in your science? Drinking the blood of a person with albinism gives extra magical powers. A man of the cloth is involved here, because it would mean that somehow religion is being brought into this part of the myth. What do you say to me? Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
Today, we focus on spousal abuse. And we ask you a very important question. That question will be on your screen shortly. We ask you today, you know that there's a very shocking statistic. Every 8 hours, a woman is killed. And how do we stop domestic abuse in this situation here in this country? Now, we have seen some of these shocking statistics in relation to the spousal abuse in this country, and would like to get your thoughts on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter page. A woman is killed every 8 hours. Now, that is shocking. We have in studio with us a victim of spousal abuse, Shanaz Butta. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis.
We also have the CEO of a shelter. It's called Shalom, and she's also joining us here in studio, the CEO and house mother of Shalom House of Refuge, and that is Margaret Sekulu. Margaret, a very good morning to you.
Morning to you, sir.
Let's start off with you, Shanaz. You were in an abusive situation, an abusive marriage. Tell us about your story very briefly.
Okay, in the beginning you don't notice it. You're too busy, or you're in denial, and then later on it becomes unbearable. And in my situation, I think it's more of obsession, where my partner used to lie on the bed and watch me dress. And he would say, oh, you can see right through your dress, wear another petticoat. There was a time when he isolated me from my family and friends. I wasn't allowed any visitors. Anybody that came to my house and wanted a glass of water had to wait outside. Then he started locking me in with the kids and wouldn't make a spare key. And I would always ask him, what if something happens, a fire breaks out or something, and I cannot get out? And he would always tell me, stop being negative, nothing will happen.
Did it ever amount to physical abuse?
Yes, he used to beat up my kids to shut me up. And every time I opened up my mouth and said, no, this is not the way you do things, and he used to mentally and verbally abuse me. He hit me about twice, but most of the time was hitting my kids, especially my middle son. So every time I opened up my mouth, he would hit the child so that I can keep quiet and just accept what he does to me.
When, how, and what prompted you to get out?
The day he threatened to kill me, he told the boys to get out of the car, and he was driving in a speed, and he said, I will drive this car into this wall, and if I can't get you, nobody else will.
What have you then done to change this and to change your life and turn your life around?
Okay, after that incident, I went to the police station, Brixton police station, and I opened up a case, and then I went to court to get a restraining order. After that, I decided, because I didn't get much help from my family, I decided to look for a shelter for abused women. I found Shalom House on the internet, and I moved there in 2013, and I'm still at Shalom House, but in this time I didn't sit still. I did my matric last year. I'm currently studying early childhood development, and I'm trying to better myself.
Now, talking about the Shalom House of Refuge, we also have the CEO and house mother, Margaret Sekulu, with us. Margaret, a very good morning to you. Now, what inspired you to start a house, or a shelter for abused women?
Amongst many things, Elvis, I would say is my upbringing. I come from a family where everybody cared for everyone. That was my father and my mother. So when I came I'm from a rural area, from a farm. So that's how our lives were. So when I came to the urban areas, I saw the harshness of things. And among the things I noticed that there was so much abuse amongst the women, amongst the families. And it was a norm that a woman must stick it out because she is married and she's not allowed to go because Wendile, you have to take it out, you must die with your husband. And so it carried on, and I watched, and I decided I need to do something about this. At first I wanted to look after the women only, But I realized that women would rather die with their children and stomach abuse instead of leaving their children. So I went around now, okay, I said, let me start a home for the women and the children. It was not easy because people didn't want to give me a place with children, for children, because they say their nice things would be broken. But in the long run, a certain gentleman, Mohammed Khan, was kind enough to rent me his property. And then that is what started the thing. And I saw, as I started, the heartache of those women, the low self-esteem. They gave up. Those who have got a high potential to be something, they gave up on themselves. They were even not eager to go out into the sunshine.
Now, what sort of assistance and protection do you offer to these women and their children that come to you?
The first thing we offer, Elvis, is to make sure that they come to a safe place. It's a place in Meredale, and people think that it's expensive. Yes, it is, because we don't have finances. But it is good for them because they come out from the crowds, and they come to this place without being afraid that their perpetrators will come and break in at the night. Then you offer them counseling, social workers, psychological help, just to make them to get their feet on the ground first. Then you come now to them and assess them which area do they want to be helped on. Because our clients differ from a 19-year-old with children to a 50-year-old or even more who are still under this abuse thing. So we class them. There are those we take back to school. There are those we get work for. There are those we send for training, because amongst our victims, we have a victim who came there, who has been victimized by the so-called spouse, and then she was kicked out in her pregnancy. We kept, she even tried, she attempted to kill herself. We kept her, she's got a baby, but today she's finished her diploma as, what is this thing? Not a beautician. No.
But anyway,
hospitality.
Hospitality
in the college.
So these are the services that you offer. Now, for both of you, very shortly, because we've run out of time,
yes.
If people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that? And for you, Shanaz, if you can just briefly tell us your message to abused women out there.
I would like to say to the women out there, it's not easy, but take that bold step, because life is too short. Don't be the next victim.
Where can they get in touch with you? Shalom House of Shelter?
They can always call me on my cell, which is 073 656 4088, or call the landline of Shalom House, which is 011 050 1654.
To both of you, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck to your efforts.
Thank you very much.
Well, those are the victims. First and foremost, not the victims. That was one of the victims that you heard there, Shanaz Botha, and of course the CEO and the house mother of Shalom House of Refuge that's looking after women and children. It's now over to Eben. That's our theme for today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elvis. Recently, Statistics South Africa released their marriages and divorces 2014 research, which documents marriage and divorce rates here in South Africa. Now, according to the statistics, the number of people getting married has dropped dramatically in the past 10 years in South Africa, while instances of divorce have spiked. More divorces were now initiated by female spouses. Now, for more on this research and the numbers, we are joined by the Statistician General, Dr. Padi Lehotla, from our Pretoria studios this morning. A very good morning to you, Doctor. Thank you for joining us and being so patient today.
Oh, well, I had time to think.
Thank you for waiting.
Yeah.
Thank you for waiting for us today, Doctor. But you know, we're dealing with a very emotive issue today around domestic abuse and the like, and the numbers that you've put forward kind of plays exactly in the wheelhouse. Just give us the overall ideas of where we are with the marriage and divorce numbers here in South Africa.
Generally, marriage is assumed to be universal. So by the time you get to age 50, you expect that 90% of those people who are aged that are married. But in South Africa, only 67% of men and 43% of females are married. The age at marriage, mean age at marriage, is about 34 for men and 30 for females. So it means marriage occurs quite at a late age. Even developed countries don't have that kind of mean age. It's slightly lower than what we see in South Africa as a developing country. We have 150,000 marriages per year on average. If you look at divorces, or rather people who are staying on their own, celibate, for the married, or rather divorced, it's 27% for women against 6% for men. So men don't stay unmarried. There is another statistic that is very interesting, where 60% of fathers say they are married against 31% of females who say they are married. So there is a dynamic in South Africa that is very unique in relation to how we bring children up. Whether your fathers can be there, but parenting is a very interesting dilemma in South Africa. And marriage as an institution that creates conditions for this, it looks like, yes, we have a very big crisis of parenting.
A crisis of parenting is what you're saying, and it's about absentee parents is what you're talking about. But I want to ask you quickly about, I see the numbers of women filing for divorces has gone up. Do you have an idea what the information is behind that?
Well, I mean, it's difficult to say what the information is behind that, but when you see claims of 61% of fathers saying they are married against 30% of females who say they are married, certainly it gives you an indication that women are up on their feet to say we are not married, and of course we will proceed and ensure that we don't get married to people who can parent. So there are issues that are the patriarchy itself is entrenched, and because it's entrenched, the practices don't allow for equality in the household, and women have to find way out. But the most telling statistic, which is not in the report that we released, but in household surveys, suggests that there is a schizophrenia and a very clumsy way of understanding relations in South Africa, where 60% of fathers say they are married, and 31% of female mothers say they are married. So it is a very threatening statistic.
And when you look at the trends for the different population groups in South Africa, what is that saying about marriage and divorce?
Well, I mean, what we see is, of course, the black African population makes up the highest proportion. Obviously, with a bigger population, but also because of the effects of apartheid, families living apart, they actually suffer the biggest brunt of this situation of marriage. But they have a disproportionate share of divorces. So while there are strained relations amongst these families that are black families, but the divorces are disproportionate. They are highest amongst whites and Indians.
Dr. Lehotla, thank you very much for bringing us the statistics today. Very disturbing, one would say. As you say, we've got a crisis with parenting in South Africa, and it's something that we have to address as a matter of course. Thank you very much for joining us today.
No, thank you very much, sir.
That's the Statistician General here in South Africa, Dr. Pali Lehotla, joining us live from Pretoria now. What everything is saying today is gone are the days when you can be financially dependent on someone else, especially women in marriage. Many women are forced to remain in unhappy marriages due to financial hardships, and having financial problems can also be at the root of marital problems. According to a recent report by Statistics South Africa, divorce rates have increased over the past year alone by 3.4%. But women are now being the first to initiate the process. Joining us in studio is financial planner at Alexander Forbes, Rita Cool, who believes that the time has come for women to be financially independent. Very good morning to you, Rita.
Morning.
Independence. You say that time is here?
It should have been here a long time ago. Women should be standing up. We've been fighting for the vote and equal rights everywhere else. So we have to take our own we have to follow our own advice and be financially independent. And financially independent does not necessarily mean you have to be working, but you have to take responsibility for your financial actions.
Traditionally, that's kind of been an inverted scenario with the stay-at-home wife. Do you think that has put women in a way at the effect in their relationship?
Yes, I think that it still has residual issues. Women feel that they don't know enough about financial issues and they feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think women are actually running the budgets for the households, they are making every single cent count not only once but 10 times because they have to feed the family and they have to make sure the children go to school. And financial independence is just the next step after that.
Do you think financial dependence is one of the core factors we have so many women that are being abused in South Africa abused in general?
I think so, because you don't see a way out. And if you don't have an income or a source of income, and where are you going to start? You might not have the education either. What job are you going to do if you have to stand on your own 2 feet? It is a big problem, I think.
What advice or what tips would you give to women who are looking at this, but they find themselves a little bit trapped because they're in this kind of situation where they're dependent on someone else for their financial well-being?
I think the first thing in any financial situation is if you don't know, ask somebody and go to a financial advisor, and they might be able to help you to take the next step and show you this is where you can save money, this is what could be done. You're not going to do this alone and you don't have to. So just speak to somebody and find out what your next step is. And it's like losing weight. You're not going to lose all that weight on one day. It is a process in a lot of times.
Now, what about the traditional roles? We seem to be trapped in that kind of paradigm across our communities in South Africa. The women are expected to accept traditional roles within the family, within society. Does that allow for financial independence even?
It should, because just because you have a traditional role and you're looking after the children or staying at home does not mean that you cannot take responsibility to make sure the bills are paid, make sure that you have death cover on your spouse's life. If something happens to him, that you know that you are financially secure. It does not stop you from having a will to help you when that spouse passes away. So you have to take responsibility for everything, and it does not matter in what traditional sense you're being a woman, you can be financially independent.
Now, we've been speaking about women in abusive relationships today. If you could give women general advice, how to get out of that and, I don't know, achieve this independence.
Okay. First of all, you have to have a plan. You need to know where you're going to. Same way as what you are planning your holiday in December, you need to know if you're going to Cape Town or Durban, what do you want to achieve? Is it long-term financial security? Is it that you are saving to get out of an abusive relationship? And then speak to somebody, make sure that you implement that plan, make sure that you follow up and you change that plan. Make sure that you know in what regime, your marriage regime you're married in, if it's in community of property, if it's antenuptial contract. Make sure that you know where the assets are, and if those assets are not hidden someplace and you think that you have a house at the beach and suddenly that house at the beach belongs to a trust and you're not going to get hold of it. So knowledge is going to set you free.
Knowledge will set you free. I like that a lot. Thank you. Rita Cool, what a cool surname.
Thanks.
Financial planner at Alexander Forbes here in South Africa, saying that women should take responsibility of their own finances. Set yourself free financially and the abuse will stop. That's the key. Well, back at the top of the hour with another news update. This is our first hour of Newsroom. Of course, today our question that we're asking you is that, well, it's disturbing the numbers that always come out. One, a woman is killed every 8 hours by her spouse or a partner here in South Africa. How do we stop the domestic violence? We've had a range of views. We'd like you to send us yours as well. We'll put it up later. But we'll be back at the top of the hour with another news update. Don't go away.
MANCOSA, Southern Africa's leading distance learning institution, accredited, affordable and accessible management education programs, higher certificates, diplomas, undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. Register at MANCOSA and be part of Southern Africa's leading private business school. Visit our website mancosa.co.za. MANCOSA, management education reimagined.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time on this Tuesday, the 23rd of February 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the second hour as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios, Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. Now, we're asking you a very important question today. You know, our entire theme today looks at abuse, and we're asking you about every 8 hours that a woman is killed, how do we then resolve and stop domestic violence in our country? That is the question that we pose to you. We'd like to get your thoughts on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. But right now, let's take a look at your headlines. Academic activities at the University of the Free State are suspended following yesterday's mayhem. An undercover SABC News team has exposed how easy it is to fraudulently acquire firearm proficiency certificates for a few thousand rand. And Ban Ki-moon arrives in Burundi amid political turmoil. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. Very good morning to you.
Good morning. There's quite a lot happening on the sports front. Some of it tonight, but some of it actually happened last night already. And a good morning to you on this very beautiful morning. This is what we have for you in the sports today. More trouble brewing for Athletics Kenya as the CEO gets suspended by the IWF Ethics Committee pending an investigation into bribery and corruption. Formula One World Champion Lewis Hamilton says his new car feels great as he has what he calls his best ever start to the pre-season testing. And a massive night is on the cards in the UEFA Champions League as Arsenal take on Barcelona and Juve host Bayern Munich. It's going to be big. If you don't catch it tonight, be sure to join us tomorrow morning. We will bring you all of those match reports. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. He will be back a little bit later, so you'll have to stay tuned. On a fast note there, let's take a look at our top story this morning. Academic activities at the University of Free State have been suspended after another day of mayhem on the campus. Protesting students invaded a field while a varsity cup rugby match was being played late yesterday, and it's reported that 2 men's hostels were also vandalized. The university says its priority is the safety of staff and students. Workers and students have been protesting against outsourcing since last week, and they had threatened to bring the university to a standstill today. They want workers to receive a minimum salary of at least 5,000 rand a month. 44 students and workers have been arrested. Breaking news now. The Secretary of the South African Professional Firearms Trainers Council has been slapped with 2 suspension letters following an SABC News expose into the fraudulent sale of firearm proficiency certificates. His duties on the SAPFTC board have been put on hold, and his firearm academy has been suspended from the body. Last night we showed you how he sold the documents for a few thousand rand without testing our news crew's knowledge of the Firearm Controls Act, nor testing their practical skills on how to use a firearm. Let's look at it, how it unfolded all yesterday.
Skopo's Firearms Academy is literally under fire.
Regulation 21.
Its owner, Andre van Tonder, sold us firearms certificates through the back door. These documents open the door to a firearm license being issued.
Daarso sy sertifikaat.
Okay. Here, he sells us a proficiency certificate and statement of results, even though our knowledge of the Firearms Control Act was never tested. And neither did we undergo a practical test on how to use a firearm at his shooting range. These are the documents that were fraudulently issued, claiming that the course has been completed. His underhand activities come with a price tag as demonstrated here. So we confronted him days later.
Mr. Van Tonder, why are you participating in illegal activity?
Because
How can you say that somebody knows how to use a firearm when they cannot? He's never used a handgun in his life. He doesn't even understand the Firearms Control Act. And you okayed this. For 1,110 rand, this is a danger to society.
Stumbling and unable to explain.
Listen, if people come with fraud in their heart to me, I can't verify that. I can't.
He was then forced to pay back the money. Criselda Lewis, SABC News, Klorkop in Johannesburg.
We've just received the suspension letter for Mr. Van Tonder. Mr. Van Tonder, as indicated in that package, does sit on the board of the Professional Firearms Training Council. And officially now, he's been suspended. He can no longer, essentially, pending this investigation by this body that he sits on, he can no longer use his training facility. He can no longer as well offer training to people who want certificates or licenses for firearms. So at this point, he's been stopped from doing business immediately.
Results of an HIV prevention and microbicide study are giving hope in the fight against the deadly virus. A monthly vaginal ring that contains an antiretroviral drug has been shown to cut the risk of HIV infection in women by nearly 1/3. Now, this is according to 2 international studies whose results were released last night. The dipravirin ring was even more effective in women over 25 who saw their risk of HIV drop 61% while using the ring. For more on this, we are joined by Geeta Ramji, the director of the South African Medical Research Council. Ms. Ramji, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
If you can just break this down for us, what do these findings indicate in simple terms for us?
So what these findings really show that a vaginal ring like this, which contains an antiretroviral, can, when inserted in the vagina through a very flexible way, could prevent HIV infection. What we did is the study was conducted in Uganda, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and South Africa, where women participated in HIV prevention research. And what we showed that when women used it, it protected them from, overall, it protected them from HIV by 21% in one trial, and 27% in one trial, and 31% in another trial. Although it's quite moderate, we are extremely excited because in the first time in the history of prevention options among women, we found a product where 2 trials show the same trend in results. What was really also excited that women over the age of 25 had a 61% chance of reduction in acquiring HIV. Sadly, the product did not work among women under the age of 21 because the women hardly used the product.
What was the sample size that was used?
Collectively, the sample size was over 4,500 women who participated in both the studies together. In the Aspire trial, where the Medical Research Council participated, the sample size was just over 2,500 women.
Now, it looks like a very simple ring, but can you explain to us what goes into this particular vaginal ring?
So this is the vaginal ring, and what it is, it's got infused with an antiretroviral agent called dapivirine. And what dapivirine does, it stops, once it's inserted in the vagina, and it releases a product called dapivirine over a 28-day period, so almost a month. And this ring, should the woman not be able to negotiate condom use, has a slow release of the drug over that period of time. And we're hoping that that release of the product available in the vagina during sexual intercourse will protect her from HIV if she's exposed to HIV.
Gita, why is this important for the African population on the continent?
I think we need to see that, especially South Africa and the region of KwaZulu-Natal, we have the highest number of infection rates among women. Sub-Saharan Africa is a home to 60% of the women infected with HIV. And I think a product like this, which a woman gives an additional option for HIV prevention, has a huge public health impact. We accept that 27% and 31% is not a wow result, but given what it does to women over 25, I think we need to explore it a bit more to at least find an additional option for women for HIV prevention.
Will this be freely available to women who wants to use the ring?
You know, the whole process of registration of such a product takes time. So the International Partnership of Microbicides, who are the holders of the licensure of the ring, are planning to submit the dossier of results to the MCC, the South African Medical Research Council. And that process may take some time, plus the mass production of the ring takes time. But in the meantime, we're hoping that the women who are in the trial can use it for some time. So to answer your question, it's going to not be available immediately, but we're hoping that it should be available in the near future. By the near future, I would say in 2 to 3 years' time.
Gita, to what degree would you say does this finding go in empowering women on the continent in general?
You know, women in sub-Saharan Africa and many developing countries are not able to negotiate condom use. And I think this would be just an additional tool if she wants to inform the partner that she's using the ring to prevent HIV, or she wants to use it without his knowledge. And I think that in itself is a huge empowerment for women who are at risk of HIV.
Gita, what is next for the product?
The next part of the product is that we will do what you call an open label study to see how the women actually use the product in a real life situation, and all the women will get the exact product with the dapivirine ring, and we'll follow them up to see what the socio-economic status is, what are the impediments of use, to better understand this. But also IPM is planning further research to have a ring like this which can prevent HIV but also prevent pregnancy. So a combination of prevention where a ring can be used to prevent both pregnancy and HIV. So there is a lot to be done. We are excited about this particular result, and we're hoping that there's much more we can do with this formulation of the ring for use for women.
Ms. Ramji, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
That was Gita Ramji, the director of the South African Medical Research Council. Here in Johannesburg, the sentence hearing of Czech fugitive Fraudulent Krejcir and 5 co-accused expected to continue in the High Court in Johannesburg today. There's a long snaking queues to the entrance of the court as court security search the people that is going inside the court. Officials are now trying to get in court after yesterday's bomb scare, and journalists must switch off all electronic devices and use a notepad and pen.
It was never going to be a straightforward hearing. Krejcir without legal representation yet again.
This after he claims he was blocked from consulting his lawyers while in Kokstad's maximum prison. Krejcir requested an interpreter. Krejcir then launched an application for Lamont's recusal.
You are biased, you are unfair, unobjective, dishonest, proven untruthful from record.
He highlighted media reports suggesting a plot to assassinate Lamont.
In the media last week, it was another article that I am plotting to kill you. Yes. To interfere with my prison conditions. And the CS did something about it. They sent me to Kokstad.
Well, they must do whatever they want.
I believe that you become part of this conspiracy since you start believing that I want to kill you when the chipstone break your front windscreen, for example.
How do you know it's a chipstone? There is no merit in the application brought by accused one for my recusal, and the application is accordingly dismissed.
Lamont also refused to grant a court order for telephonic contact with Krejcir's lawyers and witnesses. After lunch, proceedings abruptly halted after a bomb scare. The hearing continues on Tuesday. Gillian Pillay, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, we were going to dip in live into proceedings, but we just lost that signal. As soon as we get it up and running, we'll give you an insight as to what is currently happening in court. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned here on your favorite channel, 404. This is Newsroom. President Jacob Zuma has once again defended his decision to appoint Des van Rooyen as the finance minister in December last year. Van Rooyen had a brief stint in the position before being replaced by Pravin Gordhan. The president was speaking at the launch of the Presidential Press Corps in Pretoria.
The presidency wants to ensure that the media has better relations with the president and better access to him. In this way, it hopes the media will be kept informed about the president's work and decisions he takes.
I take decisions as a president. At times, people don't know that that is a constitutional right. They want to take decisions on behalf of the president, at times including some in the media, not everyone. You may not know why I took that decision. You might get very good reasons why. But if you don't know, you speculate on the basis of what you see.
One issue he raised was the appointment of Des van Rooyen as finance minister, who was removed a few days later.
That thing caused such havoc. And people think that Zuma just woke up one day and took a decision. Some have got their own reason that he was told by some people. You know, Van Rooyen is my comrade. MK, for that matter, where I come from. He's a trained finance and economic comrade. And more qualified than any minister I have ever appointed there in the finance issue. Now, but I was mad to appoint him. You can imagine if I came with a fellow who looked after Ketlet in Kandla and I made him, then I made him a minister of finance. You would say, nango, okay. So whether head or tail, you don't win here. Nobody sits down and says, let us understand what's happening.
It will be a busy week for President Zuma. He leads a high-level panel of heads of state to Burundi this week to resolve the crisis in that country. The panel was set up at the January AU summit after it decided not to send a peacekeeping mission, which Bujumbura rejected. President Zuma says United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon contacted him ahead of his visit to the country.
Ban Ki-moon is getting to Burundi in a day or two first. And we're discussing Burundi, phone because he's going there. He also wanted to know, because he thinks I know Burundi very well. I said, look, on this one I haven't got a briefing. But I will get a briefing before I leave, which I now have. But the fact that he's going there, he takes this important. He supports the high-level committee, and he wishes this will work. I'm going to phone Museveni, because he's chairing the what you call. I can't go there without talking to him.
President Zuma will then travel to Iran, where sanctions have been lifted, and then to Nigeria. He says the state visit to Abuja will be the first by an African head of state following President Muhammadu Buhari's election last year. Sophie Mukwena, SABC News, Pretoria.
Now, independent candidates in by-elections in the Tlokwe Metro have approached the Electoral Court to postpone the polls set for tomorrow. The EFF has indicated that they will support independence in the area. The ANC in the Northwest has called on independent candidates to refrain from applying delaying tactics. In the studio, we're joined by Granville Abrams, the Senior Manager, Electoral Matters at the Independent Electoral Commission of the IEC. A very good morning to you, Randall, and welcome.
Thank you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Now, it's clear now that the elections are going to take place in Tlokwe. You are ready for Tlokwe?
Well, as we are sitting here, the election has already started. In terms of the election timetable,
yes,
today we have special votes, home visits as well as at the voting station, and that is already underway as we are speaking.
How many voting stations have we got?
We have a total of 20 voting stations for all of these by-elections combined.
Let's just go back to Tlokwe and the initial so to speak, about what happened there in terms of the elections. Just give us a breakdown in terms of what went wrong in Tlokwe the first round.
Well, I think initially the independents or those who have made the application felt aggrieved that there were voters who were incorrectly registered. The Constitutional Court then asked for the elections to be set aside on those basis. We have identified in that round about 1,030 voters who we have subsequently addressed. And that was the subject of the initial application.
So what is the measure that you've put in place for that not to happen again?
Well, first of all, over and above that, we have also gone and interrogated the voters' roll and identified about 4,500 voters who potentially could have also been incorrectly registered. We shared this with all political parties on I think it was the 15th, yes, at a political party liaison committee meeting. And we had subsequently addressed it. And in the process, there was about 1,602 voters who we followed a process with. We served notice of the intention to move them to the correct voting district. Now, you need to understand very clearly this does not necessarily mean that those voters will not be participating in the election. Some of them were just in the incorrect voting district. So it was swapping of voting district. However, they may still remain and reside in those contesting wards.
The independent candidates want the electoral court intervention in Tlokwe. What is your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, the matter has been set down for 2 o'clock this afternoon, so I think it'd be a bit premature for me to comment on that matter.
What would be different this time around in terms of the elections in Tlokwe?
Well, let me tell you what we have done. Over and above the order that was handed down, and let's first of all look at the order. What the Constitutional Court had said is that going forward, prospectively, that's the word that was used, going forward, we need to ensure that we have provide addresses for voters, and we also need to ensure that we get sufficient information to locate them in the correct voting district, and that we provide contestants, the candidates, with a certified voters list with addresses. Now let me tell you what we've done. Certification of the voters list, or let's rather say certification of the candidates, was only on the 8th of February. And in terms of the ruling, that is when they would have been entitled to a certified voters roll. What we however did is, on the 22nd of December 2015 last year, we gave all parties and candidates a provisional voters roll. And in addition to that, we also provided the list of voters that was the subject of the court case, the plus minus 1,000 voters. And in addition, the 4,500 that we identified as potential. So we kept them on board all along in terms of what the status was and what we were busy investigating.
It's all good and well to have an address, but what proof have you got that that is the correct address?
Well, there is no proof within the legislation, and I think that, and the Constitutional Court also confirmed for us that there is no requirement for proof of address.
But that would mean anybody can move into a voting district and vote and give an address.
Well, if they do so fraudulently, it is an offence and it is punishable. I think the maximum term period of imprisonment is up to 10 years, and I don't think anybody would want to go to prison for providing a false address to participate in an election. I think, Elvis, what you also need to understand is our processes. The bulk of people who register make use of the opportunity during registration weekends. And during registration weekends, we deploy our entire infrastructure. We go into your area where you stay. We're opening up the voting station. Our staff is trained with a map, and people have to locate themselves on the map, and that gives us relative assurances that the majority of our voters are within the voting district, or at least definitely the ward where they are resident and should be voting in.
Now, talking about voting registration week, I know that we're running out of time, but this is very important. Sure. Registration week 5 and 6 of March. What do people need to bring to the IEC to make sure that they are registered?
Well, first of all, you need to identify the voting district, and this is the subject of our conversation that we just had. You need to determine the voting district that you are registered in, and to do that, you can call our toll-free line. You can also visit our website, and we have an application that can actually direct you based on the address that you type in to that specific voting district. You would then need to, on these registration days, you need to bring with you a copy of your green barcoded ID book. Alternatively, if you have subsequently been issued with a smart ID card, that would also suffice. Or if you have do not have an ID book, you've lost it, and you've applied for what we call a temporary identity certificate, then you could also use that to register.
The telephone number, the toll-free number as well, I believe there's also an SMS number, isn't it?
Yes, it's 0800 11 8000. And then the SMS number is 32810.
And you can check and you SMS and
that is correct.
With your ID number.
You just SMS your ID number to that SMS number, and it will reply to tell you, confirm either whether you're registered, and if you're registered, it will confirm your voting station. If you are not registered, then it will actually also relay that status to you.
Right. These are the details that you have, 0800 11 8000, as well as send your ID to the number 32810. That's your ID number, and confirm or not confirm that you are registered. That is Mr. Grandwell Abrams. He's a senior manager at the IEC here in studio with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
There you go. Now, that's where we got to leave it for now. Kendall is standing by with your sports news just after this. Stay tuned.
Defied family and traditions to follow her dream.
Decided that I'm going to prove to them that they were wrong.
The first breakthrough came in when she was studying and touring in Europe.
That was my first breakthrough.
Generations was her first television debut in South Africa.
It was my first gig. I was very excited. I was very happy. I said, yeah, this is confirmation I'm at the right place.
After pain, rejection, and suffering, her dream became a reality.
I followed my path, and I'm happy and grateful and blessed.
Join your host, Wileng Mulabati, on Bupilong every Friday at 17:30.
Welcome back. I'm Kendall Makamati and I've got your sports on Newsroom. Top of our sports stories in this bulletin is the IAAF Ethics Board has provisionally suspended Athletics Kenya chief Isaac Mwangi. Now, he's been suspended because they say it's in the interest of the integrity of the sport. This follows Mwangi's voluntary stepping down from the position last week, saying he was anxious to have his name cleared. Mwangi is accused of bribing 2 athletes who were found guilty of doping at last year's World Championships to have their bans reduced. Mwangi is suspended for 180 days, pending an investigation of a subsequent complaint made against him in relation to the potential subversion of the anti-doping control process in Kenya. Now, moving on to other sporting news, Novak Djokovic will meet Tunisian wildcard Malik Jaziri in his second round at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championship. The world number 1 made easy work of Spaniard Tommy Robredo in straight sets of 6-1 and 6-2 to open his account at the championships. Djokovic, fresh from a 3-week break after winning the Australian Open for a 6th time, began the match perfectly, breaking Robredo's serve in the second game. A second break of serve after 6 deuces in the 7th game saw the Serb take the set 6-1, and then successive breaks in the 3rd and 5th games of the second set saw Djokovic race into a 4-1 lead. Djokovic went on to serve out the match in 67 minutes. He will now face Tunisian Malik Jaziri in the second round after he defeated Mikhail Yuzhny of Russia 6-4, 6-1 in their first round encounter. Now, organizers in Zurich are making preparations for FIFA's Congress, which begins this coming Friday, the 26th of February, at the city's 13,000 capacity Hallenstadion. Delegates will debate and vote on a wide-ranging schedule of reforms to World Soccer's governing body, and a new president will also be elected. The organization has been making global headlines since last May, when authorities arrested FIFA officials and others in Zurich on corruption charges. A number of them were roused by police in early morning raids at the Borolak Hotel in the city where FIFA officials have traditionally stayed, and many are, interestingly enough, expected to stay there again for this Congress meeting. In December, the former president of FIFA, Sepp Blatter, was banned from the sport for 8 years for ethics violations, along with European soccer chief Michel Platini. The main reform proposals, which need the approval of 3/4 of the 207 voting national soccer associations, will be incorporated into a new set of FIFA statutes and come into force on the 26th of April. Kuwait and Indonesia are suspended and cannot vote in the Congress. Now, with just days to go to the FIFA Congress, where a new president gets elected to replace disgraced former head Sepp Blatter, I spoke to Veli Lambuli, SABC sports journalist, about how he thinks the voting will go.
There are different football associations I've been talking to in the region that have come out clearly to say, well, they will not be following the brief of CAF. In fact, estimation is that half, the 54 members of CAF, will not be going with what CAF decided.
Wow, that's a bit of a bombshell.
So it's as much as you say Africa has decided, but we've got to be very careful in terms of saying which.
I'll tell you why I say that's a bombshell, because what that has done is it split the African bloc. It's how many? 53 votes? 54 votes.
54 votes.
It's 54 votes that would have voted as a bloc, but now they're not anymore. Totally split, possibly amongst 3 candidates, definitely amongst 2. So that literally means that Infantino's taken this.
Well, with football elections, like any kind of election, you know, I always try to make it easier here at home when I describe this football election, that take it in the same context with ANC elections. Outsiders, the public, we can say whatever, but at the end of the day, it's the branches that are going to decide. And we can have all these estimations, but we will only know on Friday, because it's a secret ballot. We know that UEFA has said they are backing their own candidate in Infantino. We know that
CONMEBOL has said they're backing Infantino.
But there are also some members of CONMEBOL who are saying they're going with Sheikh Salman. AFC, Asian Football Confederation, where Sheikh Salman is the president, by virtue of that he's also the vice president at FIFA, have said they're backing him. But there's a second Asian candidate there, that is Prince bin Al Hussein. So you'll never know. we'll only know on Friday, because we know that UEFA, last year, they said they're not backing Blatter, they are backing Al Hussein. It's now history that Spain and France, more influential members of Europe, didn't follow that route.
Right now, staying with football, but on pitch stuff. Goals from Chris Smalling, Juan Mata and Jesse Lingard may have saved Manchester United coach Louis van Gaal his job. United avoided another embarrassing defeat when they thumped Shrewsbury Town 3-0 to qualify for the quarterfinals of the FA Cup.
Van Gaal has been under pressure to live up to Manchester United's high standard of performance. He's lost just about every tournament this season, leading to many supporters calling for his sacking. Just 10 days ago, United lost 2-1 to Sunderland in the Premiership. Had they lost this encounter against Shrewsbury Town, it could have sealed his fate. Shrewsbury Town currently sit in the relegation zone in Division 1, the third tier of English football. However, United dished out a very professional performance. West Ham await them in the quarterfinals of the FA, whilst Chelsea and Arsenal are potential semi-final or final opponents. In the European Champions League, Van Gaal's players have it all to do in the second leg at Old Trafford after succumbing to a 2-1 defeat against Danish champions Midtjylland. They could still turn the tables, having secured an away goal. Thembashiba, SABC News.
And that's why we leave it with the sport. Newsroom was going to keep it coming. Don't go anywhere, because I know Evan Janssen is standing by to chat to you about the Joburg design in Indaba. Evan?
Thanks, Kendall. Well seated, not standing by. Seated and waiting, one should say. Anyhow, this year's Design in Indaba marks Nedbank's second year of celebrating some of the globe's most artistic minds that seek to use their creativity to inspire innovation with a purpose. The Design in Indaba took place last week and attracted some of South Africa's brightest minds, from motion-charged fashion accessories to tech gesture-controlled gloves, eco-friendly goodies and human-friendly architecture. Great minds were truly working together to make a difference in communities as well as the environment. Well, joining us now in studio is the winner of this year's Design in Indaba competition, Catherine Farrell, who's also a product manager at Discovery Vitality. Then joining us is Nedbank spokesperson, the head of group advertising at the Bank of Choice, Bulimba. Very good morning, ladies. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Buli, I want to start with you with the business of it. How did it go this year?
Exceptionally well. It's our second year running with the Design in Indaba. And I think for Nedbank being a partner, we're really, really delighted. We're happy with the turnout and the results and the engagement platforms that we were afforded.
Wonderful. Now, Catherine, banking your hotel freebies. This is the title of your work that won. Tell us a little bit about that and kind of how you got there.
So the Nedbank challenge that was set at the Design in Indaba was around repurposing decommissioned ATMs. And kind of my experience of being at the Design in Indaba was walking from my hotel through the streets to the Design in Indaba. And when I sat down with the piece of paper with the entry form, kind of an idea formed around that. And it's really around, you know, as you travel and you're exposed to a lot of freebies, you're given a lot of free stuff that you don't necessarily use. You might not have your breakfast, you might not use your soap or your toothbrush or what have you.
Does that soap and toothbrush belong to you, is my question.
I agree. It might be in the business model that there's a bit of breakage.
Because I was told, you know, it's bad form amongst my friends to take the soap, although some of them always do.
Yeah. So I think there's, you know, hygiene is related to dignity, and I think there might be a better place to use that resource if you're not going to use it. So really the ATM facilitates that transaction.
Banking your hotel freebies. Tell me a little bit more about the concept, just a little bit more detail.
So it's really, you know, if you're not going to use something at your hotel, you would then bank it at reception and get a token, and you could then give that token to someone that you come across during the day, and they could then go to the Nedbank ATM and withdraw a voucher for whether they want food or toiletries.
That's wonderful. That's really very, very clever. Now, Buli, this year the event was a little bit outside. It was in Cape Town. It's a little bit different. You also got involved, well, Nedbank with the Wonderland project.
Yes.
Tell us about all of that and then the Wonderland project a little bit as well.
Okay, so our involvement with Design Indaba really aligns with what Nedbank stands for, which is really around making the things that really matter happen. So the Design Indaba afforded us a platform to engage with the creative community into coming up with innovative solutions, to some of the social challenges that we've got. So as Kath alluded to, the challenge that we gave to our delegates was how to repurpose decommissioned ATMs. So ATMs that we no longer use, what could they possibly come up with? And this is what we termed the Wonderland project. And the reason why we named it the Wonderland project is because the possibilities are infinite. We could come up with a health hub or a mobile learning hub or a breathalyzer, for example, all out of an ATM that we no longer use.
That's absolutely amazing. Now, Catherine, you are now one of the top creative minds in the country. How does that sit with you?
I feel like a bit of an overnight sensation that I'm rather unprepared for. Yeah, it's really great. And I'm kind of trying to formulate a message around avoiding waste and reusing the resources that we have. And I think,
live with less. That's my mantra. Live with less. We all need to live with less. But I want to talk about the Indaba itself. Now, there was a much stronger female presence this year at the Indaba. Young females especially getting involved. Tell me a little bit about that, the importance of that, and were you surprised to come across that?
It's not really something I noticed. It's not really something that I feel challenged with because I've worked with so many amazing female creatives. So I don't necessarily see it in terms of who's presenting the ideas. It's really what is the problem that you're solving. So I think it's great that females are represented, but I don't necessarily feel like it's something that we need to overcome. I think creativity can come from anywhere. And kind of some of the things that surprised me at the Design Indaba is that there's people that talk about amazing work, and then there's people that shock you, and then there's people that completely confuse you with their processes, and it's like a creativity overload.
Innovation with a purpose. That speaks directly to what you guys do at Nedbank as well, one would think, and that's why there's this synergy. But what is this, as Nedbank, what does this Indaba mean for South Africa?
I think banking as a whole and just entities as a whole, if you are to survive, you cannot live alone. It can't operate in isolation. So at Nedbank, we've really embraced the notion and the concept of shared value, understanding that we're interconnected with the communities that we serve, that we are dependent on them as much as they are dependent on us. And innovation and design really sits at the heart of that. In order for us to grow as a nation, as a people, we have to innovate, and design is going to drive that innovation.
Absolutely agree with that. Now, you've won a 2-week is it Google Lab in Sydney, Australia?
Yeah.
Tell me what's your expectation from that, and what would you like to do with it?
So I had a look on Google. I Googled Google. And I had a look at some of the projects that have come out of that lab, and it's things like Google Glass. So I am beyond excited. Like, it's not an insignificant opportunity. I do have some ideas of my own that I'd like to take with me, but I'm also completely just, open to however I can be involved. I'm just so excited about it.
Yeah, that's the wonderful thing about creativity. You have to be kind of open to it. You have to allow it in, I suppose. But now, really, to conclude this whole thing, there have been some notable creations. What would you like to see happen next with the Indaba itself, but also with your involvement with the Design Indaba?
I think, once again, fully entrenching, making the things that really matter happen. How do we bring the creative community together to drive that, to drive that social change and doing things that have a social impact and a social purpose. So for us, we're looking forward to taking innovation to the next level in everything that we do, in our banking systems, for example. So how do we just drive that innovation at the heart of everything that we do?
Fantastic. What would you like to see at next year's Design Indaba, Catherine, if we can wrap it like that?
I think what's a really important theme is design activism, and things like what Nedbank are doing is how do you use the creative community to take on a cause and find something that you can change through the way that you communicate or a really great idea.
Catherine Farrell and Buliamba, thank you for joining us today. We're talking about Design Indaba 2016. It's just taken place. It was a massive success. Catherine, of course, is the competition winner. She's on her way to Australia. And, well, Buli tells us that Nedbank is going to take this one to the moon. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Now, of course, we have to look back at one of our top interviews this day. Recently, Statistics South Africa released their Marriages and Divorces 2014 research, which documents marriage and divorce rates in South Africa. According to the results, the number of people getting married has dropped dramatically in the past 10 years, while instances of divorce have spiked. More divorces were mainly initiated by female spouses. Now, the Statistician General, Dr. Padi Lehotla, joined us earlier for some of his insights on this.
Generally, marriage is assumed to be universal. So by the time you get to age 50, you expect that 90% of those people who are aged that are married. But in South Africa, only 67% of men and 43% of females are married. The age at marriage, mean age at marriage, is about 34 for men and 30 for females. So it means marriage occurs quite at a late age. Even developed countries don't have that kind of mean age. It's slightly lower than what we see in South Africa as a developing country. We have 150,000 marriages per year on average. If you look at divorces, or rather people who are staying on their own, celibate, for the married, or rather divorced, it's 27% for women against 6% for men. So men don't stay unmarried. There is another statistic that is very interesting, where 60% of fathers say they are married against 31% of females who say they are married. So there is a dynamic in South Africa that is very unique in relation to how we bring children up. Whether your fathers can be there, but parenting is a very interesting dilemma in South Africa. And marriage as an institution that creates conditions for this, it looks like, yes, we have a very big crisis of parenting.
Crisis of parenting is what you're saying, and it's about absentee parents is what you're talking about. But I want to ask you quickly about, I see the numbers of women filing for divorces has gone up. Do you have an idea what the information is behind that?
Well, I mean, it's difficult to say what the information is behind that, but when you see claims of 61% of fathers saying they are married against 30% of females who say they are married, certainly it gives you an indication that women are up on their feet to say we are not married, and of course we will proceed and ensure that we don't get married to people who can parent. So there are issues that are the patriarchy itself is entrenched, and because it's entrenched, the practices don't allow for equality in the household, and women have to find way out. But the most telling statistic, which is not in the report that we released, but in household surveys, suggests that there is a schizophrenia and a very clumsy way of understanding relations in South Africa, where 60% of fathers say they are married, and 31% of female mothers say they are married. So it is a very threatening statistic.
And when you look at the trends for the different population groups in South Africa, what is that saying about marriage and divorce?
Well, I mean, what we see is, of course, the black African population makes up the highest proportion. Obviously, with they are a bigger population, but also because of the effects of apartheid, families living apart, they actually suffer the biggest brunt of this situation of marriage. But they have a disproportionate share of divorces. So while they are strained relations amongst these families that are black families. But the divorces are disproportionate. They are highest amongst whites and Indians.
That interview was recorded a little bit earlier. I did with the statistician General Dr. Pari Lehotla, telling us about, well, a spike in divorce rates here in South Africa, and also people are not getting married. Very interesting. Of course, today we deal with this question. Every 8 hours, a woman is killed at the hands of her spouse. More than half of those with a gun. How do we stop the domestic violence? That's the question we want you to tell us, give us your views on, interact with us on this very platform at SABC Newsroom is where you can get hold of us. Now, let's take a quick look around the front pages on the African continent this morning. We'll start in Zambia today. The Post reports that President Edgar Lungu says clouds are gathering among politicians for a political thunderstorm ahead of the August 11 general elections in the country. We move to Nigeria. This day says crude oil prices yesterday rose by over 6% after the world's oil consumer body, the International Energy Agency, said it expected United States shale production to fall this year and next year, potentially easing a glut that has driven prices to their lowest in more than a decade. Finally, we are in Swaziland, where the Observer reports that, having prepared for his death over 2 years ago by reportedly buying a coffin, Father Angelo Ciccone of the St. Joseph's Parish has met with his creator following a car accident that happened late yesterday afternoon. Interesting, the headlines around the country, different stories. Now, time for us to go to Philip Hawkins. He's standing by to give us a weather update this morning. Morning, Phil.
Yeah, very good morning. Well, what we're expecting in terms of your weather for today is we're expecting quite a bit of cloud cover to extend all the way throughout Central Africa's eastern and western regions, particularly though the central regions at the moment expecting that cloud cover. As we move through the day, that is going to extend further and further towards the western interior. Rainfall in conjunction with that, of course, at the moment centered over the central regions, moving further down towards South Africa's eastern regions there. We can expect cloud cover and rainfall to dominate the area. But take a look at this as we move through the day. We're going to see the intensification of rainfall through that western interior there, and we're also going to see the cloud cover extending down towards South Africa. Now, in a little bit more detail, what's going on is that we're seeing a lot of cloud cover and rainfall over Maputo. 32 degrees, temperatures of 33 in Gaborone there. 34-degree highs for Kilimanjaro means it's going to be a warm one with partly cloudy to mostly clear skies as we move to the interior. Now, moving towards the Horn of Africa, what we're seeing is warm temperatures again forecast for the area. No rainfall there, though we're seeing Mogadishu peaking at 31 degrees. Juba, again, a 40-degree maximum, meaning a very, very hot day. And some rainfall coming into Sanaa and Djibouti, 26 and 27-degree highs, respectively, for these areas. Now, in conjunction with the low-pressure system that we've seen moving by, we're going to see some rainfall all the way through from Damascus towards Tehran. These areas are expecting temperatures between about 18 and 23 degrees, and we're expecting about a 60% chance of showers and stormy systems passing over these areas. Cairo just missing out on that rainfall. A 23-degree maximum means a fairly mild day there. The rest of North Africa also expecting a bit of a chilly one in some areas. Algiers at 18 degrees. Tunis 19 degrees, but expecting some cloud cover and some rainfall as well in the area. Las Palmas peaks at 18, but is expecting some very high wind speeds up above the 50 kilometer per hour measure there. Naucot peaks at 36, and of course temperatures in the interior of West Africa peaking around the 40-degree mark. Some of the less populated areas of West Africa, the southern coastlines there anyway, might just get some rainfall. But Lagos and Abidjan, no rainfall there for you today. Partly cloudy skies with temperatures between 31 and 33 degrees. Now, Bangui again peaking one of the highest, if not the highest, populous area around Africa for today. 42-degree maximum with partly cloudy skies. As we said a little bit earlier, Kinshasa and the surrounding areas expecting the intensification of storm systems this afternoon, and that's what you can expect for your weather for today. Send us your feedback. Email us weather@sabc.co.za. or give us a call, 011-714-5077 is the number. That's where I leave your weather for now. Show goes on. Continue.
Yeah, thank you very much to Phil Hawkins. I can tell you that it seems as if, well, the pace is picking up in the South Gauteng High Court, where Radovan Krejcir, of course, he is sentencing procedure continues. Let's go there and listen what Judge Colin Lamont has to say.
I would like to submit that Mr. Cliff Alexander did visit me in the imprisonment. Mr. Cliff Alexander did indeed visit me in the imprisonment.
Po 6. únoru, když jsem se vrátil z Kokstadu.
After the 6th of February when I came back from Kokstad.
Já jsem neměl možnost s ním konzultovat.
I did not have the opportunity to consult with him.
Jako privátně.
Privately.
Byli kolem nás vždycky prostě security people.
Because we had around always some security people.
My jsme žádali, aby jsme mohli konzultovat jako privátně.
We applied for a private consultation as a privilege.
Jako rights for to prepare, jako, že
as a part of my rights to prepare.
A to nám nebylo umožněno.
Right, well, he's not here. That's what I'm putting to you. Can you deal with that issue?
And it was not allowed. A on tady není, můžete prosím vás mi říct, proč ten nebo jak?
On mi potvrdil, že mě bude zastupovat.
He did confirm that he will represent me.
A jediný důvod, proč tady není dneska, je, že jsem neměl dovolenou mu zavolat.
And the only reason why he's not here today is because I was not allowed to make a phone call to contact him.
You say he's not available.
Jste říkal, že není dneska, že nemůže dneska.
To nevím, já to nevím.
I do not know.
Well, you said he wasn't available. That was your evidence. He's in another court. He's not here because he is in another court and not available. Only one of us can speak, Mr. Krejcir.
Sorry, my lord?
Jenom jeden z vás může mluvit.
Only one of us can speak at a time. You said in your evidence, in your statement, that Alexander is not here because he is in another case and not available. So he's not available. You knew that.
This is what I said yesterday.
No, you said it now today.
A řekl jste to zase znovu dnes.
Jak bych to věděl, že není available? Já jsem s ním neměl možnost mluvit.
I did not know that he is available. He is not available today because I didn't have the opportunity to talk to him.
To řekl prokurátor, že ne?
The prosecutor said he is not available, if I remember correctly.
He did say that. So you both are in agreement that he's not available.
Vy jste říkal, že jste oba se...
Ale já to nevím, protože jsem s ním nemohl mluvit.
But I do not know it because I did not have the opportunity to talk to him.
I'm not going to get embroiled in an argument with you. What else do you want to say?
Nebudu se s vámi o tom hádat, co ještě chcete říct?
K této aplikaci.
About this application.
Yes.
Ano.
Že když mě navštívil v tom Zonderwater věznici ještě, bych chtěl doplnit.
I would like to further say that when he visited me in the Zonderwater imprisonment, jail,
já jsem neměl možnost od něho přijmout žádné dokumenty. Kromě toho, že jsme nemohli konzultovat jako privátně.
We were not allowed to consult in privacy as well as.
Nemohl jsem přijmout žádné dokumenty.
I was not allowed to accept any documents from him.
A nebo mu dát nějaké dokumenty.
Or give him any documents.
A že moje vlastně poznámky, které jsem měl v průběhu těch 2 let, co jsem byl u soudu.
And my notes, which I had completed during the 2 years of this case.
Jakože to byly working preparation notes.
Working preparation notes.
Byly mi odebrány.
They were taken away from me.
Takže proto vlastně nemohl tady, proto jsem se nemohl připravit s právníkem.
And this is the reason why I was not able to prepare myself together with my lawyer.
Right.
To je všechno.
This is all.
Thank you.
Děkuji.
Accused number 1 applies for a postponement to enable him to call a lawyer. Originally, I thought that he wished to call the lawyer as a witness. It appears, however, from the present application that he wishes to call his lawyer as he wants to use his services, i.e. he wishes to be legally represented today. He stated during the course of what his statement was from the dock that the lawyer was not here as he was in another case and not available. The fact of the unavailability of the lawyer and his not being and his being in another court was confirmed by the prosecutor, Mr. Mashiane, who spoke to the lawyer, Mr. Alexander. Accused number one has had more than ample time to obtain the services of legal representation and has failed to do so. His conduct cannot be allowed to further delay the proceedings of this court. The application is refused. Yes, now?
Chtěl bych požádat, jestli by bylo možné, abych mohl přivést svědky.
I would like to apply for the possibility of bringing witnesses.
Pro můj sentencing procedure.
For my sentencing procedure.
Who are they?
Chtěl bych psychiatra Dr. Dikobe.
A psychologist, psychiatrist Dr. Dikobe.
Who?
Dr. Dikobe, psychiatrist.
From Zonderwater.
From Zonderwater.
Dikobe. I can't hear his name.
Dikobe. D-I...
K-O...
Dikoben.
D-I-K-O-B-E.
Yes.
Dikobe.
Yeah. Potom bych chtěl psycholožku z Zonderwater.
Then I would like the psychologist from Zonderwater.
Colonel Dreyer.
Colonel Dreyer.
Yes.
Mojeho kriminologa, se kterým jsem konzultoval, Mr. Zane.
My criminologist who I consult with, Mr. Zane.
Doktorku z Koshimampuru, doktor Tsatsi.
And Dr. Tsatsi
z Koshimampuru, kde jsem byl
15 měsíců. Where I spent 15 months.
Jako déle, než jsem teďka v Zonderwater.
Which is longer than I have been presently in Zonderwater.
Toho psychologa, psychologist, ne? Psychiatra chci kvůli mental state, jako, aby
I want the psychiatrist to, because of my mental state.
Let's just start with why none of them is here. Are they here?
Jsou tady?
Já jsem nemohl nikomu zavolat, já jsem neměl dovoleno.
I was not allowed to call anyone.
Takže psychiatra jsem chtěl kvůli mental state.
So the psychiatrist I wanted to be present because of my mental state.
The psychologa kvůli physical state.
And the psychologist because of my physical state.
What do you say your mental state is?
A co říkáte, jaký je váš mentální stav?
A to bych chtěl, aby právě ten psychiatr řekl.
I would like the psychiatrist to say it or state it.
Beg your pardon?
I would like the psychiatrist to say what my mental state is like.
Well, what do you say it is?
A co říkáte,
že jsem nemocen.
That I'm sick.
Yes, what's wrong with you?
Co je s vámi špatného?
There was a word which you couldn't translate into English, which you were dealing with yesterday.
Bylo to nějaké slovo, které jste nemohl včera přeložit?
Jo, no tak já bych chtěl jako vyjádřit všechny pocity, které jsem vlastně prodělal za tu dobu 27 měsíců jako depression patient.
I would like to state all the emotions which I had during the 27 months as a depression patient.
Jako těžký depression patient.
Heavy depressions. I was the
na chronic medication.
I am on chronic medication.
And jako co za zoufalství v podstatě strach a beznaděj vlastně procházelo mojí hlavou, nebo co jsem prodělal kvůli toho, že jsem byl v segregaci.
And because I was in segregation, what was happening to me, the anxiety, the depression, which happened to me.
Hopelessness.
The hopelessness as
and
well.
Were you being treated for these conditions?
Oni vás na to léčili?
Ne. Já jsem jako léčili mě, no, ano.
Yes, I was treated.
I remember you saying yesterday that there was some condition which you couldn't translate from Czech into English. Are you prepared to disclose what that condition is, or you don't want to say?
Já jsem nemohl přeložit nějaké, jako že jsem nevěděl, jak se řeknou nějaké medikální jako názvy, které jsou v mém medical fileu. Jako.
I did not know some of the medical terms which are part of my medical file.
And do you want to tell me what those terms
Chcete mi říct, co to je za, terminologie?
Já prostě tu terminologii, já nejsem doktor, já neznám přesně tu terminologii, ale chtěl bych, aby ten medical file tady byl, když to budu mít před sebou.
I do not know the terms of head. I would need to have my file in front of me, and then I would say it. I would like to have the file to be here.
My impression was yesterday that you knew some word that you wanted to translate, but you were struggling to translate it.
Včera, že měl pocit, že jste chtěl říct nějaké slovo, které jste jako vy sám chtěl říct, ale nemohl se ho přeložit.
Jo, to bylo to slovo, že jsem chtěl vyjádřit ty svoje pocity, které jsem vlastně byl vystaven tím, že mě nechali 27 měsíců v izolaci.
These were the emotions I wanted to name, which were as a result of me spending 27 months in isolation.
And do you want to name them?
Chcete je teďka jmenovat?
Já bych rád je jmenoval, ale já je prostě neumím pojmenovat jako medikálně.
I do not know the medical terms. I would like to, but I just don't know the medical terms.
Well, you can tell me the condition and then if you want.
Ta situace je taková, že my jsme tady včera měli sestru, medikální sestru.
The situation is as such that yesterday there was a nurse here.
A ona byla tady, ona byla vlastně Sapína, jako ji předvolali na základě Sapína. Ona tady přišla.
She came according to Sapini or according to a Varan.
A hlavní kondice té Sapíny byla, že má s sebou přinést jako medical file.
And the main condition of her appearance here was that she was supposed to bring the medical files with her, which is written on this document.
Já jsem jí včera jako se ptal otázky.
I did ask questions yesterday.
Jestli má medical files jako u ní.
I asked her if she does have the medical files with
Mr. Krejcir, we've been through this. Why are you repeating what happened yesterday? I asked you a simple question. Are you prepared to disclose what you say, what the medical condition is, which you want me to take account of?
Tohle to už jsme řešili včera. Chcete mi jako říct něco, co s vámi je, abych to mohl...
To jsme neřešili včera.
We did not deal with that yesterday.
I'm asking you what you say it is. Do you want to disclose it? What do you say it is? If you don't want to disclose it, you don't have to.
My lord, yesterday we...
Speak through the interpreter, please, Mr. Krejcir.
Včera jsme nemluvili o tom.
We did not discuss it yesterday.
I know, that's why I'm asking the question today.
Ne, on mi říkal, že jsme přesto šli včera jako. Tak říkám, že jsme přesto nešli včera.
You said that we did go through it yesterday, so I'm just stating that we did not.
Mr. Krejcir, we went through superficially certain of the evidence relating to your condition. I'm asking you today, do you want to tell me what's wrong with you medically? Or do you not? Physically and emotionally and intellectually and whatever else, you are free to tell me whatever you want. I will listen and think about whatever you tell me.
Já bych hrozně rád bych to udělal, ale nejsem schopen, protože nejsem doktor. Já mu jsem schopen vysvětlit, jaké pocity jsem prodělal a co jsem jako prošel si za těch 27 měsíců, ale medikálně mu nejsem schopen vysvětlit.
I would not be capable to give you the proper medical terminology
because
I am not a doctor, but I can state my emotions.
Yes, tell me. As a layman, what do you say is wrong with you?
Co říkáte, že je s vámi špatného?
No, že jsem byl 27 měsíců v té solitary confinement.
I was for 27 months in a solitary confinement.
Kdy jsem žádal nesčetněkrát, abych nebyl v solitary confinement.
I applied countlessly to not be in solitary compartment.
A speciálně ne jako depression patient.
And especially not as a depression patient.
V mém medical fileu jsou jako reporty.
In my medical file there are reports.
od psychiatra, psychologa
from the psychiatrist and psychologist
a doktora,
and the doctor,
což bych chtěl, aby on byl seznámen s těma medikálníma reportama.
And I would like you to be acquainted with these reports,
které jednoznačně vlastně říkají, co jsem si prošel a co je se mnou špatně.
Which clearly states what I have been through and what is wrong with me.
Proto byl ten důvod té subpoeny, aby přinesli ten medical file.
This was the reason of the subpoena yesterday, because I needed the medical file.
Kde jsou ty reporty, které bych chtěl, aby on měl možnost přečíst si.
In this medical file, there are these reports, or the medical file does have these reports in, and I would like you to read them.
A nebo aby mohli přijít ti doktor, ta psycholožka a psychiatrička a vysvětlila mu.
Or I would like the psychologist or psychiatrist to come to explain the state or my state.
And the criminologist?
Pardon?
The criminologist?
Kriminologista.
Tak já jsem dneska jsem tak zaprvé jsem mu nemohl zavolat.
First of all, I couldn't call him.
A když jsem dneska přijel tady na soud,
And when I arrived today at the court,
tak dole v holding cells byla návštěva Miss van der Rieve.
And
Navštívila
downstairs,
svého klienta tam, accused.
Mrs. van der Rieve visited me. Van der Rieve.
Visited accused.
She visited the accused number 2.
The counsel.
Who visited accused number 2? It's van der Rieve.
Yes.
Counsel van der Rieve visited accused number 2 in the cell.
A ona mi informovala, že kriminologist tady může být zítra k dispozici od rána.
And she informed me that the criminologist could be here and is available tomorrow from the morning.
She said so she's been working for you. She's your lawyer.
Ona měla takovou informaci, mi předala, že získala takovou informaci, že ji volali včera, nebo já nevím.
She gave me this information that she acquired such an information that they called her yesterday, or I'm not sure.
Yes. And what about the other person, Dr. Is it Tsatsi?
Co doktor Tsatsi?
Doktor Tsatsi, to je tu doktorku bych chtěl hlavně, protože ta měla se mnou zkušenosti 15 měsíců, což jsem byl v Košimampuru. Dr. Tsatsi.
Dr. Tsatsi is the main person I would like to be here, because she had the experience with me for 15 months when I was in Košimampuru.
Why isn't she here?
Proč tady není?
Já jsem ji nemohl kontaktovat včera.
Because I couldn't contact her yesterday.
Right, and what's she going to say? What do you want to say?
Ona by řekla přesně, prostě taky z medical fileu. Ona byla hlavní doktor v tom Košimampuru, takže bych chtěl, aby tam nebyli jenom z hlediska psychologického, ale z hlediska moje jako fyzického, jo, jako
She was the main doctor from the Košimampuru, and she knows also the other sides, not just the psychiatrist side of me, but also the physical state of me, as in blood.
Bladder.
The bladder, the condition of my bladder.
A tak dále.
And so forth.
No. Is that all you have to say?
No, tyto svědky bych chtěl, aby byli schopni tady být a mohli by se vyjádřit k mojemu sentenci.
I would like these witnesses.
I
would like those named witnesses to be here to tell their position according to my sentencing.
And are those the only witnesses you're talking about?
To jsou jediné svědci, o kterých mluvíte?
Ano.
Yes.
And apart from those witnesses, is there anything else you want to say to me?
Ještě jako když pomineme ty svědky, je tam ještě něco, co mi chcete říct?
Já bych chtěl reagovat ještě na jeho včerejší otázku.
I would like to react to your yesterday's question.
Když jsem mě zeptal 25 000 gramů, ohledně 25 000 gramů.
When you asked me about 25,000 of grams.
Yes. O drogy jménem Ice.
The drug of the name of Ice.
Já jsem mu říkal, že nemám o tom žádné informace, protože nemám žádné zkušenosti z drogového biznisu.
I did tell you yesterday that I do not have any information about it because I do not have any experience from the drug business.
Ale co se přihodilo ze včerejška na dnešek?
But what has happened since yesterday or at night from yesterday until today or last night?
Já jsem měl možnost mluvit s jedním z členů z vězeňské služby.
I had the opportunity yesterday to talk to one of the member of the prisoner staff.
Jako EST member.
EST member.
What member?
EST member.
I don't know what that means.
To je nějaká speciální jednotka vězeňská služba.
It's a special squad in the prison. Special squad.
A ten mě informoval, že jeho bratr
and he informed me that his brother
je jako teď as we speak, jako jo, že je prostě, že užívá ten crystal meth a užívá 10 gramů denně.
And he informed me that his brother uses it as we speak and he uses 10 grams a day.
A on mi říkal, že když včera viděl to v té televizi, vlastně na tom news, když jsme tady procházeli,
and he told me
Yeah, we have to cut away from proceedings in the High Court in Johannesburg. Of course, the court has heard now that Tsai Lupondo, the co-accused of convicted Czech fugitive Radovan Krejcir, is a suitable candidate for correctional supervision. Lupondo's legal representative, Annalene van der Heever, submitted on the second day of the sentencing proceedings that the Sanlam businessman was a committed father who is financially responsible for his 3 children's private schooling. She also argued that Lupondo had been an exemplary citizen until in convictions last year. Now, of course, we'll go back there once matters speed up again, or if there's, well, any more detail coming in. Of course, right now, Radovan Krejcir pleading for witnesses to be allowed to take to the stand during the sentencing procedure in the South Gauteng High Court. Of course, time now for us, that time of the morning, time for us to have a more regional look at news here on Newsroom. Now, I can tell you this weekend, a spectacular Armed Forces Day was held in Port Elizabeth, and we can now report that it was a resounding success. The day was a culmination of a week of rehearsals in the friendly city. Thousands of PE residents came out to watch the South African Defence Force show off their capabilities. It was the 4th and biggest Armed Forces Day since it was proclaimed in 2012. Now, Janine Lee, she talked to the Brigadier General Mabanga about the success of this Armed Forces Day of the weekend.
The way it was and the way it has been planned, it became the fantastic one, and it became the first of its own. Because remember, since the institution of the Armed Forces Day celebration from 2012, then we started celebrating it in 2013 in Pretoria. That was in Attersville inland, and then some of the assets that the Navy used could not be displayed. And then when we got to Bloemfontein in 2014, again, it was a landlocked environment, and we didn't do much of the things. Then we try from time to time, we presented that we improve it. Because when we did it again in Potchefstroom in 2015, that was a different ball game. But this year, It was really spectacular and fantastic because we had all the elements of the South African National Defence Force being on display, as well as showing capabilities. That is the other thing that we have never done since we have been presenting the Armed Forces Day. Because yesterday, we didn't only see the assets of the South African Navy on shore, offshore, but we were able to see the capabilities or things that they can do and things that they cannot do, combined with other elements from the South African Army, from the South African Air Force, as well as South African military health services. So in a short, we were able to showcase the capabilities of the entire South African National Defence Force in one event.
So just touching on that, you said that there's so many spheres to the South African Defence Force. So for someone who's watching out there, if you wanted perhaps a career in health, you could look at the military, couldn't you?
You can. That's why the whole week preceding to yesterday, we're having career exhibition stalls in Kings Beach, where South African Military Health Service was telling and informing and raising the awareness of the public, more especially the youth and the school kids that were visiting the stalls. Career opportunities available within the South African military health professions that are there, psychologists, social workers, dentists, doctors, and all what you find within the healthcare practitioner environment, as well as other services. The Army, the Air Force, the Navy was also doing the same. Because most of the people, they are not aware of career opportunities that are available in the Army. In the South African National Defence Force, they only think that the South African National Defence Force constitute of the Army because they see it in patrols of the borders, and whenever there's a situation where we assist or support the South African Police Service, it will be the Army that is mostly spoken of. However, within the Army itself, you'll find engineers, you'll find caterers, you'll find different professions, as well as if you go to the Air Force, you also find different careers, from air traffic controllers, pilots, and everything that you talk about within the air environment. When you go to the South African Navy, you also find different disciplines as well as you do within the South African Military Health Service. So this week, we also had those displayed and explained to the public with the capabilities that each element of the South African National Defence Force had. They were also on display.
Now, coming back to yesterday, it was precision at its best, and obviously no room for error when you look at some of the manoeuvres in the sky and at sea. General, how long in the planning for a day like this?
Well, it takes some time to plan for it because first you start to have to find out the venue where are you going to do. You have to determine what do you want to do and find out an environment or a situation or an area which will afford you the opportunity to do what you want to do. And once you have done that, and then you have to go into details of how are you going to do it and with what are you going to do it. Then you start doing the planning. After you have done or concluded that planning and it has been approved by higher authorities, then you have to start rehearsing and trying to implement it and see the visibility of it. So it takes some time indeed.
As a Defence Force, with the Armed Forces Day, what is the biggest challenge, if you can pick out one, that you face when looking at a day like this?
Well, the biggest challenge, if you look to be like a day like this or putting up an activity like this, definitely it will come to putting together the resources, because it's not just getting a ship or getting a vehicle or getting an aircraft. It also entails elements that you need in order for that vessel or item to be operational. The personnel that you need, the spares that you need, the repairs that you may require to have it functional and operational, and then we have it ready for the event or ready for an operation.
General, congratulations. It was a fantastic day, and as I said, will live on in the memories of Port Elizabeth people who actually watched it for many years to come, and they still have not yet decided where the next Armed Forces Day will be, but I'm sure as soon as the South African Defence Force knows, they will put it out there and people will start getting ready. And just before I hand back to you, there's a commander, a naval commander, who actually had to drive back to Pretoria last night because his wife was about to give birth to their second son, and he had hung on here in Port Elizabeth till the very last moment. Just giving you an idea, country before family first, and that's what many of our personnel in the armed forces do. From us here in Port Elizabeth, it's back to the studio in Johannesburg.
Yeah, it was a magnificent Armed Forces Day in Port Elizabeth over the weekend. Members of opposition parties in the Western Cape will today debate the State of the Province address delivered by Western Cape Premier Helen Zille last week. During her address, she said the province has seen an upward trend in business confidence despite declining levels nationally. Zille focused on the economy, jobs, health and education services at a time of mass unemployment nationwide. She outlined a strategy for economic growth and job creation through what she called game-changing programs.
Before proceedings started, members of the ANC picketed outside the building. Zille's address of over 2 hours focused in large part on the Western Cape's performance in terms of job creation and investments. She described several so-called game-changing programs, which will, among others, include skills development, clean energy, better living housing models and after-schools programs. Zille said business confidence in the provincial economy has seen an upward trend and provincial government has managed to recover from and grow jobs since the global recession.
Today, Madam Speaker, there are over 200,000 more jobs in the Western Cape than there were when we took office in 2009. We have managed to recover from and grow jobs since the global recession. The unemployment rate has gone down over the last 3 years.
Members of the opposition regularly heckled Zille while speaking. The House was called to order several times.
We have an opportunity earmarked next week for debate and questions. I don't mind interjections, but ongoing running commentary drowning out the speaker will not be allowed. Thank you.
Undeterred, Zille continued to lay out plans for further growth and development in the province until 2019. Zille said ambitious targets are set, which are highly susceptible to economic conditions, but that extensive efforts will be made. This includes over 530 million rand invested in skills development, of which a large chunk will be allocated to supporting youth in work placement. Other issues raised include addressing a more integrated society, in especially the city, with projects in the pipeline to create mixed-income housing. Renewable energy is also high on the agenda. Drug abuse is another headache, but Zille says in the last 5 years, the budget for substance abuse programs has nearly doubled to over 92 million rand. Policing, especially in gang-ravaged areas, remain a challenge. She, however, says the province remains committed to working closely with police.
There is a major deficit in policing resources in the Western Cape, with police-to-population ratios in excess of 1 police officer to 700 residents in some of the precincts hardest hit by crime.
Order.
To put this in perspective, Deputy Speaker, the national average police-to-population ratio is 1 officer to 328 people. In some of our worst affected precincts, it is 1 to 700. That is half as many policemen in relation to population in some of our most crime-ridden areas, which is an absolute scandal. The mandate for policing falls within the national government.
Zille lauded the men and women of various disaster management and fire services programs for their brave efforts in fighting recent massive fires across the province, which caused major loss of vegetation and agricultural land. The Premier ended her speech by saying there is hope despite massive challenges.
We have covered a lot of ground since taking office in 2009, and we are now in a phase of delivering on the stretch targets we have set ourselves in line with our long-term vision. And they are stretch targets, and we're going to have to work really, really hard to achieve them. But let me say again, we are working for the Western Cape to succeed because we all passionately want South Africa to succeed. I am more optimistic about our future than I have ever been before.
Opposition parties have expressed mixed reaction to the speech, saying they would have liked to see more detail on the massive housing backlog and crime.
Well, the speech didn't surprise me. I expected those claims. A lot of noise about the national deliveries and where they have not done much and they shift the blame to national. And I expected that it makes them comfortable. But to be honest with you, we appreciated the fact that there has been a clean audit. It shows that there is some paperwork done, the administration is solid. By the way, this is administration that was adopted from the ANC.
No, the state of the province today was a joke. I would like to see the issue of crime, the abuse of drugs, should get preference in terms of the challenges of the people of the Western Cape.
She did not speak about anything about racism at the moment now. And she, as I think as Premier, she could have said, starts with you, those type of things. The sentiment said in National Parliament.
Opposition parties will have an opportunity to debate the State of the Province address on Tuesday. Mariska Botha, SABC News, Cape Town.
And now we can report that voting has started in the Tlokwe by-elections. Most voting stations open in time for hundreds of voters casting special votes in the by-election in the Tlokwe municipality in Potchefstroom in the northwest. More than 1,000 people registered for these special votes. Long, snaking queues to the entrance of the court were seen as court security searched people going in, while some voting stations were reported to be still quiet. Now, police are also monitoring this process. While voting is going ahead as planned, parties are awaiting a court ruling on the fate of the elections tomorrow. This comes after independent candidates approached the electoral court asking for a postponement of these elections, citing irregularities on the voters' roll. Now, our reporter, Tsolofelo Matiberi, he's based in Potchefstroom for the voting process. He gives us the latest.
Independent candidates taking part in the coming Tlokwe by-elections have instructed their legal representative to file court papers. They are complaining about what they say are irregularities contained in the voters' roll. With me is the legal representative of the independent candidate, Mr. Hans Yuri Mulman. Mr. Mulman, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mulman, can you just take us through what is actually happening? Why this court challenge?
To be very brief on this, the whole issue is about an amount of 4,160 names that appear on the certified voters roll without any addresses. This matter goes back to the Constitutional Court judgment, where the Constitutional Court actually, in line with Section 16.3 of the Electoral Act, ordered the IEC to make a voters roll available with the addresses where they are available. Now, in this instance, we are accepting that there may be some instances where the addresses are not available, but an amount of 4,160 voters without addresses is not acceptable to us. My client's initial complaint was about the irregularities on the voters' roll, the way people were registered, and so forth. And in this instance, we feel that we are back to square one. We haven't made any progress, and for that reason, we are challenging the certification of the voters' roll to say that there was supposed to be a verification, or the problems that were there in the past should have been dealt with. And it is clear, if you're looking at that number, that it hasn't been done. Obviously, the difference between us and the IEC is the IEC argues from the premises that the court order is only with effect from the 30th of November 2015. That is the date upon which the court gave our judgment. So they only have to deal with problems that occurred after the 30th of November. We differ from that because the legislation in terms of which the order was made was applied and was in full force before the court order was granted. And in this instance, obviously, this is the reason why we are differing with the IEC, and we hope that the electoral court will clarify this issue. There are unfortunately implications, or some implications to this exercise, and that is that we are also asking the electoral court, because of these problems in the voters' roll, to postpone the by-elections up until those irregularities or those problems that we have are dealt with, if the court agrees with us in our interpretation of what the Constitutional Court ruled.
But then there's been interventions, there's been meetings that were held at the election house in Pretoria, and another meeting that was held not so long ago in Potchefstroom itself. In those meetings, were you not able to raise those concerns? And what was the IEC's response when you raised those concerns for you to try to find each other?
Look, the first time we got the final voters roll was on the 8th of February. After that, my clients went and did some verification of that voters roll to see whether there are indeed people registered on the voters roll that are not residing in those wards, because that is actually why we wanted the addresses in the first instance. Apart from that, they also had a look at the voters roll, and if you just look at the voters roll, those addresses don't appear on that. So our first step was to raise this as a complaint with the IEC. That was amongst another complaint that we also had with the abuse of state resources to bolster a specific political party's interest in these elections. And we had a meeting with the IEC last week where there were some constructive suggestions that we made and a constructive response from the IEC. But on this issue, on the voters' roll, we won't overcome our differences because there's a difference in interpretation. So that is why we are resorting to the electoral court, because we feel it's so important that when we go into an election, that we must at least know that the voters' roll the integrity of the voters' roll is intact, and that the people that are going to participate in that wards are indeed the ordinary residents of those wards as is required by law.
But your clients, are they willing to maybe continue with this by-elections if, for instance, the court then says that, you know, other substantive issues will be dealt with, but the date should continue as is?
Certainly, well, it will be up to the court to decide on that. Whether, obviously, the Constitutional Court set aside the previous by-elections because of irregularities. If the court agrees with us, I find it fairly odd that the court will say continue with the by-elections if there's 4,000 or the possibility of 4,000 or say even half of that on the voters roll where there's serious concerns about. But if the court orders, we will abide by. There's no intention not to abide by the law. This is why we also vent ourselves to the courts. That is the appropriate way when you are dissatisfied with something, to go to the court, not take the law into your own hands.
So can we then say that it is possible that these Tokwa by-elections might be, in a way, hanging in the balance?
Yes.
And it can go either way?
Yes. I cannot preempt what the court will say. But one of the prayers in the relief that we are asking for is indeed that the by-elections be postponed up until a date where it would reasonably be expected from the IEC to take care of this problems we have with the voters' roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mama.
Thank you.
Legal representative of the independent candidates, Mr. Hans Yuri Moman, talking to us about the court challenge that the independent candidates have taken to the electoral court. And this, as he says, might mean that the Tokwe by-elections actually hangs in the balance. Back to the studio.
Yeah, thank you, Tsolo. As it stands, the election is still going ahead in the Tlokwe municipality tomorrow, the 24th of February. Of course, unless there is a change in this process at the 11th hour. Time for us now to wrap up this regional look at news. We'll be back with sports news with Kendall Mahamati after a short break. See you then.
For victory requires intense effort and teamwork. When you get to it, there is no turning back, because all eyes are on you. When it's action time, nothing should stand in your way. Sports Live tackles and analyzes all the sport action. This is the home of all your sport news, updates and more. Sports Live weekdays at 8:30 p.m.
I'm Peter Miller.
And I'm Production Chetty Miller, SAB Miller, and Bush InBev. It's something that I need to learn to say more often.
Will together produce around a third of the world's beer.
It is a mouthful. Have you ever considered skin bleaching?
Nigeria tops the list of African countries with 77% of its women bleaching their skin.
Now I can see that it is not good because it affects my face and some of my body parts.
Thousands of Arab Israelis and Palestinians participated in a big rally. Flight MH17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile.
How those chips may fall is a prediction best left to the currency of time.
That's Primetime News, Africa Journal, and Your World on SABC News.
Welcome back. I'm Kendall Makamat, and I'm bringing you a wrap of the sports that we have on this Tuesday morning. Now, triple Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton completed the equivalent of nearly 2.5 race distances at the circuit of Catalonia in Barcelona on what he said ranked as his best ever start to pre-season testing.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back and glad that I can still drive. Another year into it, and I'm just excited to get going.
The Mercedes driver completed a massive 156 laps at the circuit of Catalonia, where the Spanish Grand Prix lasts for 66, to eclipse the mileage of all of his rivals as the new cars hit the track for the first time. Hamilton, champion in 2014 and 2015 with Mercedes, had completed a race distance by lunchtime and told reporters anxious for first impressions that the car felt just like last year's dominant one.
It feels very much the same as last year's car, to be honest. It doesn't feel any different. I think for a normal person to look at the cars, it's very difficult for you to see the difference. So, but that's a good thing. Last year's car was good. Mercedes won 16 of 19 races last year, taking both the driver and constructor titles, and have triumphed in 32 of the last 38 Grand Prix. Ferrari's Sebastian Vettel, who was fastest overall and 0.470 of a second quicker than the 31-year-old Briton, did 69 laps in total.
Generally, it seems like a step up. I had good confidence straight away and felt at home, so that's usually a good sign. But we know as well that there's a lot of work ahead of us still. So,
Valtteri Bottas was third quickest in a Mercedes-powered Williams in the morning, but Red Bull's Daniel Ricciardo ended the day in that position with a Finn fourth. Despite the strong showing, Hamilton, who's won the past 2 championships and is aiming to become the first Briton to win 4 world titles, said the season starting in Australia on the 20th of March would be tough. Now, after 53 days, 12 hours, 21 minutes and 3,000 miles across the ocean, South African Greg Moore arrived in Antigua and crossed the finish line of the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge, known as the world's toughest row. Greg finished in 16th place, beating 10 other teams to the finish line. But Greg was not doing this for fame or glory. He took on the challenge to raise money for streetlight schools, helping to improve educational opportunities in South Africa. He's right here with us right now. South African rower, solo rower across the Atlantic Ocean. Greg Moore, good morning and welcome to Newsroom.
Good morning. Thank you, Kendall.
I think it's when we first heard that you'd arrived back across the finish line and you'd be available to talk to us this week. I thought, oh, cool, the guy's been back across this transatlantic row for some time. When did you actually get back to solid ground?
I arrived in Antigua on the 11th of Feb, so it's taken a little while to transition back from there and get back home.
Oh, that's pretty fascinating, because I think we need to actually get an understanding of what you've just done. You crossed the Atlantic Ocean from Africa all the way to the Americas.
Effectively, yes, that's right. The start was at La Gomera in the Canary Islands and finished some 3,000 nautical miles or just over 5,000 kilometers later in Antigua.
And you were rowing the whole way?
That's right, rowing the whole way.
You must have some serious calluses.
I do. I've got some, although in the last 10 days my hands have started to heal a little bit, so not quite as much as I had a few days ago.
Wow, you definitely make a very good hand model for something along the artisan route. What makes this the world's toughest race? Besides the fact that it really hurts your hands, hurts your body, what makes it so tough?
Rowing the Atlantic, it's the distance. It's 5,000 plus Ks. The weather and conditions are always unpredictable. You never really know what you're going to get. You just have to deal with what's dealt to you, and maintaining yourself and your equipment all really add to the challenge.
And while doing this race, are you in communication with anyone? Are you talking to people? Are you in radio comms with people? How is it that you communicate? Because you've got a support team, I suppose, yes?
A support team back at home, but really once you reach the end, no outside assistance at all. So you're entirely self-contained. In terms of communications, you're typically too far away from any other ships, vessels, or land to use radio. But I did have a satellite phone on board, so I was able to keep in touch using that.
Well, now that we've established how tough this race really was, let's get an understanding. Why do this?
I've always loved the personal challenge of events like this. Rowing an ocean has to be one of the great classic adventures, like climbing Mount Everest, like skiing to the poles, and so from a personal perspective, have always loved to challenge myself and test what I'm able to do, and at the same time really wanted to use this row to try and help others as well. And so there's a charity aspect where we've been trying to raise awareness and funds for a fantastic organisation called Streetlight Schools, based here in Johannesburg.
And how did you get to talk about Streetlight Schools? Why them specifically? Because 53 days to be rowing. Why that particular series of schools? Why that one?
I've just always felt very passionate about education as a means of creating opportunities for people, for our children, and investing in the future of our country. And Streetlight Schools has developed a really innovative approach to delivering quality primary education at a fraction of the cost of the traditional model.
Do any of the students actually get to know what you've done? Do they actually get to see it? Are there videos that you showed?
I haven't been back long enough to have gone into the school just yet, but I'm hoping to go in and give them a bit of a talk about the row.
Yeah, because one of the things that because just now we had a view of a little bit of a graphic showing the map from the Canary Islands all the way to Antigua. I'm hoping that we can bring it up again, because there it is, and I'm hoping that when you take them through maybe a geography lesson, you can take them through some of the conditions, the distance, all the things that you experienced on your way through there.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that certainly my wife and I have two kids, and I know that at their schools they in fact were following the row quite closely, and I think their geography class was using it as a bit of a case study to understand latitude, longitude, and look at things like that. So there's certainly enough different aspects to a row like this that it'll be great to share it with the kids and hopefully help inspire a few.
And now you're inspiring us and some of our viewers, I hope. Like, just before we close off, I think it would be key to get a little bit of advice from you, because there must have been a whole host of challenges that you experienced, that you conquered on this journey. What kind of advice would you be giving somebody that wants to do this kind of thing for either for fitness or for personal growth or for charity as well? What kind of advice would you give?
Yeah, the advice that I'd give is preparation. Prepare as rigorously as you can. It's a huge challenge. Things will go wrong, so as carefully as you plan, also be ready to be flexible, be ready to adapt. But believe in yourself. It's a huge challenge. It was a huge challenge for me. But one of the things I think that I've certainly seen and learned through this is that we are, I think, all capable of so much more than we perhaps believe we are. That I'd encourage people to go out there and challenge themselves in whichever way they would like to.
Greg Moore, thank you so much for taking the time to see us. I know there are a whole bunch of people that want to see you. They want to shake your hand, pat you in the back and say, how did you do it? Welcome back to the land of the living. You've been gone for 53 days. Well done, sir. And there's a video of you out in the ocean.
Thank you very much, Kendall. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. Greg Moore there, right there, a solo rower completing the world's toughest row. And I'll have you know, he told me that there's some people still out there. They'll probably only finish in about 10, maybe even 20 days. Now we carry on with our sporting news, and now let's have a look at tonight's last 16 Champions League matches. Current champions Barcelona will be visiting Arsenal, while Juventus host Germany's Bayern Munich.
Winning back-to-back titles in the Champions League is what Barcelona coach Luis Enrique is gunning for. And with talents such as Luis Suarez, Lionel Messi and Neymar at his disposal, many believe it's possible. Barcelona is taking a 32-match unbeaten run to Arsenal for the first leg of the Champions League last 16 tie tonight.
We are the current champions, and our goal is to win back-to-back titles. That entails a certain degree of motivation, and we hope we can put it into practice at a great game at the Emirates Stadium.
Arsenal's only victory against Barcelona came in 2011, when goals from Robin van Persie and Andrea Ashwavin gave them a 2-1 victory in the first leg of their last 16 tie. Another Champions League match will be between champions and leaders of Italy's Serie A and Germany's Bundesliga, Juventus and Bayern Munich. Both are unbeaten in all competitions since early December, and both have exactly the same record in their last 10 matches, 9 wins and 1 draw.
We've had a long break from Champions League after the initial rounds in the winter break. Our statistics in regards to the most important teams in Europe are very good. Also, it's my 100th Champions League match, and I'm thinking back to my first matches. I started out very young, and I'm very happy when I think back to my beginnings, the many matches I've played.
The teams last met in the quarterfinals of the same competition 3 seasons ago, when Bayern won both legs 2-0.
Well, that's pretty much it. That's where we leave it with the sport, Elvis.
From myself, Elvis President, and Kendall, as well as Eben, which is not here, but we'll say to you goodbye until tomorrow, same time, same place. Ciao for now. Arrivederci.
Llegamos.